Chapter 185. Never in its wildest dreams did the eight-legged evil spirit expect a human to dare attack it in the water, and it was caught completely off guard. Yun Ruoyan silently circled the eight-legged evil spirit once, noticing that its 8 thick tentacles were evenly distributed around its body. Its entire body was glossy and its flesh seemed to be very thick, not something that could be dealt with a single stab or arrow. However, even the most powerful of magical beasts had their weaknesses. Yun Ruoyan's goal right now was to find that weakness and kill it in a single blow. When Yun Ruoyan reached the top of the evil spirit's head, she finally discovered a spot on its head that was glowing red. Yun Ruoyan's eyes lit up. No wonder it didn't dare to stick its head out. Its weakest point was at the top of its head. If Yun Ruoyan's guess wasn't wrong, that red glow was the spiritual vortex where its beast core was located. Magical beasts and humans had different spiritual vortices. Humans generally had spiritual vortices located in their dantian, whereas magical beasts had different forms, so the location of their spiritual vortices was uncertain. However, once a magical beast reached a certain rank, it would form a beast core in its spiritual vortex. As long as one pierced through the spiritual vortex, they would be able to kill it. The eight-legged evil spirit didn't have a sturdy skull like terrestrial magical beasts. Instead, it was a mollusk with a soft skull and it only had 8 frightening tentacles. Without any hesitation, Yun Ruoyan swam toward the eight-legged evil spirit's head. Her sudden movement finally alerted the eight-legged evil spirit, and it opened its large, lifeless eyes to stare at Yun Ruoyan. Yun Ruoyan's movements attracted the evil spirit's attention. Although its eyesight wasn't very good, when it stared at Yun Ruoyan with its large, lifeless eyes, it still had a threatening aura. Yun Ruoyan couldn't help but stop, but the eight-legged evil spirit didn't. The 8 thick tentacles around its body began to dance. Although the eight-legged evil spirit could sense Yun Ruoyan's presence, it couldn't pinpoint her exact location. All it could do was randomly wave its 8 thick tentacles around its body. Yun Ruoyan nimbly somersaulted in the water and dodged the tentacles' attacks. Without hesitation, Yun Ruoyan dodged the tentacles and swam toward the red light above the evil spirit's head. At the same time, she gripped the dark steel dagger in her hand. The currents caused by her swimming caused the eight-legged evil spirit to panic, and its 8 tentacles flailed about even more violently than before, causing the calm surface of the lake to churn violently. On the shore, Lin Qingchen, Lin Qingxue, and Zhou Yifeng all stared at the lake, their hearts filled with worry and anxiety. "Why isn't Sister Ruoyan out yet?" Lin Qingxue asked anxiously. "Will she suffocate to death if she doesn't come out to breathe for so long? What nonsense are you spouting?" Lin Qingchen couldn't help reprimanding Lin Qingxue. "Look at the ripples on the surface of the water. Sister Ruoyan must be fighting with the eight-legged evil spirit underwater. Yes, she should be here soon. Everyone be careful," Zhou Yifeng said. Underwater, the eight-legged evil spirit had already sensed the approaching danger, and it began to wriggle its tentacles as it retreated. A tentacle swung toward Yun Ruoyan from behind, but Yun Ruoyan stepped on the tentacle with both feet and leaped toward the eight-legged evil spirit in an instant. Without the slightest hesitation, she gripped the dagger with both hands and stabbed it into the red light on the eight-legged evil spirit's head. The evil spirit's head was weaker than the rest of its body, and the dagger in Yun Ruoyan's hand was exceptionally sharp. As a result, the dagger almost completely sank into the evil spirit's body. However, because the dagger was too short, Yun Ruoyan wasn't able to kill it in a single blow. The evil spirit's weak spot had been attacked, and its intense pain and anger finally caused it to swim toward the surface. Its speed was so fast that Yun Ruoyan didn't even have time to pull out the dagger and escape before she was dragged toward the surface by the evil spirit. With a loud splash, the eight-legged evil spirit's black, round, and enormous body shot out of the water. The enormous impact caused the lake water to splash toward the shore, and both Lin Qingchen and Lin Qingxue couldn't help but take 2 steps back. However, Zhou Yifeng didn't retreat. He braved a large wave and took a step towards the lakeside. The bow in his hand was tightly held in his hand and the tiger fang arrow was knocked on the bowstring. He was ready to shoot at his target at any time. As an underwater magical beast, although it wasn't as strong as the saber-toothed tiger, its size was more than twice that of the latter. The saber-toothed tiger was already one of the larger magical beasts, and it was clear just how large the evil spirit was. The tiny Yun Ruoyan was dangling from its head, her hands clutching the dagger. As the evil spirit thrashed about, she was like a leaf in the wind, ready to fall at any moment. Zhou Yifeng had also seen the red glow on the evil spirit's head, and he was certain that that was its weak spot. However, because Yun Ruoyan was in the way, he didn't dare to let go of the arrow in his hand. With Zhou Yifeng's archery skills, he should have been able to find an opening and shoot the arrow into the evil spirit's head without injuring Yun Ruoyan, but he didn't dare take the risk. Yun Ruoyan was also waiting for Zhou Yifeng to act, but he didn't. She turned around and saw that Zhou Yifeng was pointing his bow at her, but he didn't fire the arrow. Yun Ruoyan could guess what Zhou Yifeng was worried about. Gritting her teeth, she let go of the arrow and her tiny body fell straight into the water. At the same time, Zhou Yifeng's brows furrowed. He closed his eyes and the bowstring in his right hand suddenly loosened. With a whoosh, the tiger canine arrowhead pierced through the air, leaving a trail of sparks in its wake as it flew straight toward the red glow on the evil spirit's head. The tiger canine arrowhead accurately pierced through the red glow on the evil spirit's head, and the arrowhead buried itself in its body. An extremely unpleasant sound came from the evil spirit's mouth, and its body began to thrash about even more violently. Although the red glow on the evil spirit's head was a relatively weak spot, its flesh was so thick that Zhou Yifeng's arrow actually didn't manage to penetrate its spiritual vortex. Zhou Yifeng quickly pulled out another tiger canine arrowhead from his back and used all his spiritual energy. He knocked the arrow, pulled the bowstring and released it in one go. The tiger canine arrowhead flew out once more, accurately piercing into the hole left behind by the previous arrow. This arrow pierced into the eight-legged evil spirit's body, but this one hit the tail of the previous arrow and pushed it forward. The tiger canine arrowhead finally pierced through the eight-legged evil spirit's spiritual sea where its inner core was hidden. The eight-legged evil spirit let out a final wail before falling heavily into the lake. The evil spirit's howl was so loud that it traveled all the way from the oasis that the four of them were in to the surrounding oases. In an oasis to the south of the oasis that Yun Ruoyan was in, a group from the Qin kingdom had just killed a group of low-rank magical beasts and obtained their cores. They were in the midst of extracting the cores when they suddenly heard the evil spirit's howl, and they couldn't help but stop what they were doing. They killed the eight-legged evil spirit? A shocked voice rang out. It was none other than Miss Li from the Mo kingdom, who had escaped from the oasis that the group was in. They really killed the evil spirit? The young mistress from the Qin kingdom who had escaped with Miss Li also exclaimed in disbelief. Zhao Su, who did you say killed the evil spirit? A burly youth asked the young mistress from the Qin kingdom. Zhao Su told the youth about their encounter with the evil spirit in the oasis the day before. The youth was called Zhao Ming and he, like Zhao Su, was from the Qin kingdom. He was quite familiar with the evil spirit. It lived in the deep sea and it would occasionally swim to the shore to attack humans. It was extremely sly and sneaky, relying entirely on its 8 tentacles to attack humans. It would never reveal its true body, so even a cultivator with a high cultivation would find it difficult to kill it in the water. Who could have killed it? The members of the Qin Kingdom team were all filled with doubt and suspicion. To the north, in the oasis that Yun Ruoyao and Wang Meng were in, Yun Ruoyao and Yi Qianying had already decided to leave Rong Yueshan's group. Are you really not going to team up with us? Rong Yueshan looked coldly at Yun Ruoyao and Yi Qianying. Yi Qianying maintained her silence. She was currently the concubine of the Crown Prince's manor, and Rong Yueshan was the Crown Prince's cousin. According to etiquette, Rong Yueshan had to address Yi Qianying as her cousin-in-law. However, because Yi Qianying wasn't the Crown Prince's consort, and her status wasn't as high as Rong Yueshan's, Rong Yueshan didn't think much of her. On the other hand, because Yun Ruoyao's cultivation was relatively higher than Rong Yueshan's, Rong Yueshan didn't think much of her. Miss Yun. Before Yun Ruoyao could speak, Rong Yueshan spoke first. I know that the Yun family and the Rong family are at odds because of my sister's death, but that was caused by your sister Yun Ruoyan. I've always been clear about what's right and wrong and I won't blame you for it. Rong Yueshan's words were sincere. When Rong Yuehong was still alive, she had always been arrogant and domineering. She had never cared about her concubine sisters, so her relationship with Rong Yueshan wasn't particularly good. Rong Yuehong's death had actually caused Rong Yueshan, who had always been suppressed by Rong Yuehong, to gain Rong Tianling's favor. As a result, Rong Yueshan didn't hate the Yun family, nor did she hate Yun Ruoyan. However, Rong Yueshan had received orders from Rong Tianling to find an opportunity to kill Yun Ruoyan and avenge Rong Yuehong. As a result, she had to deal with Yun Ruoyan. This had nothing to do with her own will, but rather was a mission that she had to accomplish in order to solidify her position in the family. However, Yun Ruoyao was different. Rong Yueshan hadn't received any orders to deal with Yun Ruoyao, so she was sincerely trying to keep Yun Ruoyao with them. Miss Rong, we must work together as a team, but I don't have the same opinion as everyone else. However, Yun Ruoyao had already made up her mind. So if we force ourselves to stay, it'll only cause more discord in the future. It just so happened that young Master Wang invited us to team up with him, so we agreed. Rong Yueshan was a proud and arrogant person. Seeing that her kind words wouldn't be able to keep Yun Ruoyao, she snorted coldly. Since the two of you have a better place to go, I naturally won't stand in your way. Please. Yun Ruoyao and Yi Qianying glanced at each other, then turned and walked toward Wang Meng's team without another word. Just then, a pained cry from a magical beast could be heard from afar. Everyone froze. From the sound, it sounds like a high-rank magical beast. Who killed it so quickly? Wang Meng narrowed his eyes as he looked in the direction of the sound. Chapter 186. It's dead, it's dead. On the shore, Lin Qingxue tugged on Lin Qingchen's hand and shouted, Brother Zhui, you're amazing. You killed it. Where's Sister Ruan? After a brief moment of excitement, Lin Qingchen began to look at the surface of the water anxiously. Ever since Yun Ruoyan had fallen into the water, she hadn't resurfaced. Sister Ruoyan, where's Sister Ruoyan? Lin Qingxue also looked anxiously at the gradually calming surface of the water. Qingxue, catch. Zhui Yifeng threw the bow in his hand and the quiver on his back to Lin Qingxue on the shore. Lin Qingxue caught the bow and arrow in her hands, then watched as Zhui Yifeng took a deep breath and dove into the lake. Zhui Yifeng dove for quite a while, but he still didn't see any sign of Yun Ruoyan. Exhausted, he had no choice but to return to the surface. Brother Zhui, did you find Sister Ruoyan? Lin Qingchen and Lin Qingxue asked at almost the same time. Zhui Yifeng shook his head and dove back into the water. He repeated this process several times, but he still couldn't find Yun Ruoyan, and he had expended quite a bit of his energy. Neither Lin Qingchen nor Lin Qingxue were particularly good swimmers, or they would have long since dived into the water to search for Yun Ruoyan. However, Zhui Yifeng's inability to find Yun Ruoyan's corpse meant that she was in a location that he couldn't reach. Brother Zhui, come up, Lin Qingchen said after a long pause. Lin Qingchen thought for a long time before replying, Sister Ruoyan will be fine. If I'm not mistaken, she must have gone down to retrieve the beast core. After being shot to death by Zhui Yifeng, they hadn't had a chance to retrieve the beast core before it had sunk into the water. Lin Qingxue guessed that Yun Ruoyan's disappearance must have been to retrieve the beast core. Did you manage to retrieve a high-rank beast core? Just then a woman's voice rang out from behind them, startling both Lin Qingchen and Lin Qingxue. All of their attention had been on the missing Yun Ruoyan, and they hadn't even noticed that someone had appeared behind them. When Zhui Yifeng saw that someone had suddenly appeared, he immediately came out of the water and stood next to the Lin siblings. The three of them saw that there were quite a lot of people coming. There were a total of 7 or 8 people, and the leader was a woman in red. She was the one who had just spoken. Although the three of them weren't familiar with this woman, they remembered meeting her at the gates of the capital. She seemed to be on bad terms with Yun Ruoyan and Yun Maxiao. As Lin Qingchen looked at the red-dressed woman, she recalled that Yun Ruoyan had vaguely mentioned that her name was Rong Yueshan, and that she was the daughter of Rong Yueshan. The affair between Yun Ruoyan and Rong Yuehong wasn't a secret among the nobles of the capital. Although Lin Qingchen and Lin Qingxue hadn't seen it with their own eyes, nor had they asked Yun Ruoyan about it, they had heard the gist of it. I didn't expect you guys to be so powerful. You actually killed a high-grade magical beast so quickly, Rong Yueshan said as she led her team over to the three of them. Miss Rong, Lin Qingchen asked, why do you say that? When did we kill any high-rank magical beast? There's no need to hide it. The red-lipped, white-teethed youth behind Rong Yuehong said without any trace of politeness. We all heard the cries of the magical beast. Otherwise we wouldn't have run over here. Hurry up and take out that high-tier magical beast core for everyone to see. The youth's words were extremely direct, as if he were about to snatch it from them. Lin Qingxue, Lin Qingchen and Zhou Yifeng's hearts skipped a beat. What do you mean? Are you going to snatch it from us? Lin Qingxue questioned the youth. The youth laughed sinisterly but didn't say anything else. However, his meaning couldn't have been more obvious. Rong Yueshan scanned the three of them, but she didn't see Yun Ruoyan. Where's Yun Ruoyan? Why don't I see her? Lin Qingchen, Lin Qingxue and Zhou Yifeng didn't say a word. Rong Yueshan focused her gaze on Zhou Yifeng. When she saw that he was wet and remembered that he had just come out of the water, Rong Yueshan turned her gaze to the surface of the water. Is Yun Ruoyan still in the water? Rong Yueshan wondered. That mournful wail had clearly come from a high-tier magical beast before its death, but both its corpse and Yun Ruoyan were nowhere to be seen. All that was in front of them was this pool of water, so there was only one possibility. Yun Ruoyan and the magical beast were both in this pool of water. When Zhou Yifeng and the others saw Rong Yueshan's gaze on the water, they couldn't help but place their hands on their weapons. Yun Ruoyan's battle with the eight-legged evil spirit must have expended quite a bit of her energy, and she had been in the water for such a long time. If she were to emerge from the water now, she would surely be very weak. If she were to encounter someone trying to snatch it from her while she was underwater, she wouldn't be able to defend herself. Now, if anyone from Rong Yueshan's side wanted to enter the water, they would surely try their best to stop them. Rong Yueshan looked at the three people's expressions and was even more certain of her guess. She couldn't help but take another step towards the lake. The gloomy, pale-faced youth followed closely behind her. Yueshan. The pale-faced youth leaned close to Rong Yueshan's ear and called out intimately. Rong Yueshan turned to look at the pale-faced youth, who continued, "Are you suspecting that the treasure is at the bottom of the lake? There are quite a few in our party who are proficient in water-based techniques. Why don't we let them take a look?" Rong Yueshan smiled, and her gaze swept over Zhou Yifeng and the others once more. The three of them were all above average in terms of cultivation, and any one of them would be quite formidable in her party. However, if they were to really fight, they would be able to take on two or even three of them. As a result, Rong Yueshan wasn't afraid of conflict. "You decide whether or not to enter the water," the pale-faced youth continued. He seemed to be very obedient to Rong Yueshan. Rong Yueshan nodded. Just as she was about to agree, she suddenly realized that more people were heading their way. "It looks like there are quite a few people who want a share of the spoils," Rong Yueshan thought. "Has the eight-legged evil spirit been killed? Where is it?" Zhao Ming's voice could be heard from afar. Behind him were Zhao Su, Miss Li from the Mo Kingdom, and a small group of 7 or 8 students, all of whom were on par with Rong Yueshan's party. Zhao Ming's party was made up mostly of students from the Qin Kingdom, and they had heard of the eight-legged evil spirit since they were young. They had also heard more than once about how it had stealthily dragged away fishermen and overturned merchant ships. However, none of them had ever seen the eight-legged evil spirit in its true form, so when they heard its mournful wail before its death, they had all rushed over, eager to see its true form. As for the beast's core, they didn't have any immediate plans to do so. "What, do you want a share of the spoils as well?" the pale-faced youth asked directly. Zhao Ming stared blankly at the scene before him. There were clearly two parties in front of him. One had 7 or 8 students while the other only had 3. "That's probably the party that killed the eight-legged evil spirit," Zhao Su whispered from behind Zhao Ming. Zhao Su had seen Yun Ruoyan's party the day before. When she and Miss Li had left, Yun Ruoyan's party of 4 had stayed behind, so Zhao Su was certain that Yun Ruoyan's party had killed the evil spirit. But they're missing one person. Zhao Su didn't see Yun Ruoyan. The eight-legged evil spirit's corpse isn't here either. "Both the missing person and the beast's corpse should be underwater," Zhao Ming replied. The eight-legged evil spirit would never leave the water, and its body was so large that no one would be able to bring it ashore even if it had been killed. As a result, there was only one possibility. Someone had chased its corpse into the water. Since it hadn't emerged from the water, that meant that the beast's core hadn't been obtained. Didn't that mean that everyone had a chance? Zhao Ming's original intention was to see the eight-legged evil spirit's true form, but now he had changed his mind. How could he not reach out for a treasure that was right in front of him? Zhao Ming's interest was piqued. Without any hesitation, he turned to Zhao Su and asked, "Can I borrow your fish core?" Zhao Su paused for a moment then quickly reacted. You want to go into the water? Zhao Ming nodded. Zhao Su pursed her lips and took off a translucent pale yellow bead from around her neck and handed it to Zhao Ming. Whether it was the Qin Kingdom or the Qinyuan continent, a core that required at least 300 years of cultivation and at least a 9th-rank forge master to refine. The former was already rare enough and the latter was even rarer. There were quite a few forge masters on the Qinyuan continent, but those who were above 6th rank were rare. Most of them were below 5th rank. Thank you. Zhao Ming took the fish pellet and said to Zhao Su. Zhao Su's cheeks began to blush. Although Zhao Ming and Zhao Su shared the same surname and were both from the Qin Kingdom, they came from different clans and weren't very familiar with each other. Zhao Ming had also inadvertently seen the fish pearl on Zhao Su's neck. The fish pearl could only be used when held in one's mouth. Zhao Su had lent the fish pearl she had once held in her mouth to Zhao Ming. It was no wonder that she blushed. This core can only be used in the water for an hour, Zhao Su whispered to Zhao Ming. Zhao Ming nodded and walked back to the lakeside. Rong Yueshan's team also picked out 2 students who were proficient in water-type techniques and prepared to enter the water. Brother Zhuo, what do we do now? Lin Qingxue asked anxiously. Zhuo Yifeng's bow was already in his hand, and his other hand silently reached for the quiver in Lin Qingxue's hand. The quiver had been divided into 2 parts, one for ordinary arrows and the other for tiger canine arrows. Zhuo Yifeng's hand reached for the tiger canine arrows. Ordinary arrows could kill but they wouldn't have much of an effect. Zhuo Yifeng wanted to use the tiger canine arrows to intimidate these 2 teams. Zhuo Yifeng's hand was already on the arrow when the pale-faced youth suddenly spoke. What are you trying to do? Chapter 187. What do you think you're doing? The pale-faced youth shouted but not at Zhuo Yifeng. Instead he stood in front of Zhao Ming. The arrow in Zhuo Yifeng's hand froze. It's none of your business what I want to do. Zhao Ming wasn't one to be easily intimidated. He was much taller than the pale-faced youth and he looked down on him with disdain. At that moment Rong Yuehong's team began to move. The 2 students who knew water techniques had already followed Rong Yueshan's gaze and walked towards the lakeside. Get out of my way. Zhao Ming couldn't help but panic when he saw someone trying to get into the water before him. No one knew what was going on in the water, so the one who went in first would definitely have the advantage. The pale-faced youth laughed sinisterly as he stood in front of Zhao Ming. What can you do to me if I don't move? Zhao Ming was furious. He raised his fist and sent a gust of wind towards the pale-faced youth. The pale-faced youth was quite agile and he dodged the attack in an instant. Zhao Ming didn't bother fighting with him, and instead took the opportunity to rush to the lakeside. Even so, Zhao Ming still fell behind the 2 students, who had already leapt into the water. Just as Zhao Ming leaped into the air, a streak of fire flashed before his eyes, followed by 2 blood-curdling screams. The 2 students were skewered by an arrow the moment they leapt into the water like meatballs. They fell into the water at the same time, and their blood dyed the surface of the lake red. Zhuo Yifeng took out another tiger canine arrow and aimed it at Zhao Ming. Zhao Ming was shocked by what he had just seen. He turned his head in the direction of the arrow and saw Zhuo Yifeng pointing the tiger canine arrow at him. Zhao Ming's heart skipped a beat, and he immediately used his movement technique in midair. In the blink of an eye, 3 illusory figures appeared in midair. Each of the 3 illusory figures looked real and everyone's eyes widened in shock. Zhuo Yifeng narrowed his eyes. Although he couldn't tell which one was the real one, he still fired the arrow before Zhao Ming fell into the water. The tiger canine arrow pierced through the phantoms in the middle, and as the phantoms vanished, Zhao Ming's real body fell into the water. Damn it! Zhuo Yifeng and Rong Yueshan cried out at the same time. Not only had Rong Yueshan's team lost 2 members, but they had also been beaten to the punch by someone else. Naturally, the proud and arrogant Rong Yueshan could not tolerate this. She took out 3 silver darts from her waist and threw them at Zhuo Yifeng. This silver dart was slightly inferior to Zhuo Yifeng's tiger canine arrowhead. It was a 4th-grade spiritual artifact, so it wasn't confiscated. However, it was still quite powerful. Zhuo Yifeng shot 2 arrows, and just as he pulled out his 3rd arrow, Rong Yueshan's dart flew towards the 3 of them. Zhuo Yifeng and Lin Qingchen hurriedly retreated. The 3 of them dodged the 3 silver darts, but this gave Rong Yueshan an opening. Without hesitation, Rong Yueshan jumped into the lake. Oh no. Zhu Yifeng, Lin Qingchen and Lin Qingshua's expressions changed at the same time. Perhaps Yun Ruoyan could deal with Zhao Ming alone, but if Rong Yueshan joined the fray, she would be in grave danger. Furthermore, given Rong Yueshan's history with Yun Ruoyan, it definitely wouldn't be as simple as stealing the treasure. Zhu Yifeng turned around and handed the bow in his hand to Lin Qingxua. I'll go down. Take care of yourselves. Then with his clothes still wet, Zhu Yifeng jumped into the lake once more. When the two squads on the shore saw that their leaders had jumped into the water, they all rushed forward. The pale-faced youth glared at Lin Qingchen and Lin Qingxua, as if he wanted to kill them in revenge for his teammates. Don't move or I'll shoot you. Lin Qingxua took Zhu Yifeng's bow and pointed it at the pale-faced youth. The tiger canine arrowhead glinted coldly, and the fact that Zhu Yifeng had just killed two of his teammates with a single arrow struck fear in the youth's heart. On the shore, a standoff ensued. As for Yun Ruoyan, when she had fallen from the eight-legged evil spirit's body into the lake, she had stealthily hidden to one side. By the time Zhu Yifeng killed the eight-legged evil spirit, she was about to return to shore, but when she saw the beast's massive body sink into the water, she didn't have time to greet the others. Instead, she followed the beast's massive body into the water. With the beast core in her mouth, Yun Ruoyan could breathe underwater for up to 4 hours, so she didn't have to worry about suffocating. She chased after the eight-legged evil spirit until she finally caught up to it. Yun Ruoyan climbed onto the beast's massive body, sinking with it as she used her dark steel dagger to cut open the part of its head where the arrow had struck it. The red glow was slowly fading away, and what she needed to do now was to retrieve the beast's core from within. However, the beast core was simply too deeply hidden. Yun Ruoyan's entire arm had sunk into the evil spirit's skull, and all she could feel was her entire arm being enveloped in a warm, viscous liquid, but she couldn't touch the beast core. If they were on the shore, they could easily dismember the eight-legged evil spirit and search for its core. But they were in the water, and the evil spirit's corpse was still sinking, so Yun Ruoyan found it a little difficult to do so. Instead, she lay on top of the beast's head and sank with it, waiting for it to sink to the bottom of the lake before she could deal with it. She didn't know how long she'd been sinking, but as the sky slowly darkened, she began to have a bad premonition. How could it have sunk so deep? She hadn't stabbed the beast so deeply with her dagger before. Under normal circumstances, most people would have long since succumbed to the cold. However, Yun Ruoyan had a top-grade beast core in her mouth, and she could breathe freely even in the deep sea, so she didn't feel any discomfort. However, as her surroundings grew darker and darker, Yun Ruoyan began to feel more and more sensitive. She began to wonder if there were other sea monsters lurking in the water, and if they would suddenly emerge from the depths. Given the current situation, the wisest course of action for Yun Ruoyan would be to abandon the beast core and float to the surface, where it would be absolutely safe. It wasn't easy to kill the eight-legged evil spirit. Do I really have to give it up just like that? Even the usually decisive Yun Ruoyan began to hesitate. Just as she was struggling to make a decision, the eight-legged evil spirit finally sank to the bottom of the lake. Its massive body slammed into the bottom of the lake, stirring up a large amount of mud. Yun Ruoyan buried her head in the beast's soft, thick flesh to avoid choking. It was only after a long while that the mud finally settled back down, and Yun Ruoyan raised her head from the thick flesh of the eight-legged evil spirit. Yun Ruoyan could only see darkness all around her. Although it wasn't so dark that she couldn't even see her fingers in front of her, she couldn't see anything more than 3 steps away. With a flip of her hand, Yun Ruoyan retrieved a beast core from her pocket dimension. In her palm was the core of a small fiery-maned hound, and it gave off a faint glow that couldn't reach very far underwater. Qiu Qiu. Yun Ruoyan called out to Qiu Qiu in her mind. Qiu Qiu opened its eyes and asked, "Mistress, what's the matter?" "Qiu Qiu, help me find the brightest beast core in my pocket dimension," Yun Ruoyan ordered. In order to retrieve an item from her pocket dimension, she had to know exactly where that item was located. There were so many items in her pocket dimension that Yun Ruoyan wasn't as familiar with as Qiu Qiu. Yun Ruoyan tossed the beast core in her hand into the darkest corner of the room, then took out all of the beast cores she had in her pocket dimension and scattered them around the room. Although the light emitted by the fiery-maned hound's inner core was relatively weak, it was still able to vaguely illuminate the surroundings as the numbers increased. Yun Ruoyan used this blurry glow to observe her surroundings. She found that she had followed the eight-legged evil spirit to a place surrounded by stone walls. The walls were covered by a thick layer of moss and aquatic plants, making it difficult to see their original appearance. "Mistress, I found a medicinal rabbit core," Xiao suddenly exclaimed. "All right, give it to me." Yun Ruoyan turned her gaze away from her surroundings and took out the medicinal rabbit core from between Xiao's paws. Yun Ruoyan had obtained this core from the imperial territory, and it had been stored in her pocket dimension ever since. The medicinal rabbit's core was much brighter than the hound's. Now that it was in Yun Ruoyan's hand, its white glow illuminated everything in front of Yun Ruoyan. Although Yun Ruoyan had a top-grade fish core in her mouth, she didn't have to worry about breathing. However, Lin Qingchen and the others would surely be worried if she didn't go out for too long, so she didn't want to waste any more time. Using the light from the medicinal rabbit core, she immediately used her dagger to stab at the wound on the eight-legged evil spirit's head. The dagger was extremely sharp, and the eight-legged evil spirit's thick flesh was cut open by Yun Ruoyan's blade, revealing its core. It was the size of an infant's fist, and it glowed with a blinding red light. The instant the evil spirit's core was revealed, the red light illuminated the entire space around Yun Ruoyan. "Mistress, something's wrong with this place," Xiao suddenly exclaimed, its voice heavy. "What's wrong?" Yun Ruoyan put the medicinal rabbit core back into her pocket dimension, then took the evil spirit's core in her hand. "Mistress, take a look around you," Xiao continued in a serious tone. Yun Ruoyan had finally managed to obtain the evil spirit's core, and she had been quite excited about it. But now, under Xiao's influence, she couldn't help but suppress her excitement, and her expression turned even more serious. Using the bright red light from the core, Yun Ruoyan looked around once more. This time she discovered that she wasn't just surrounded by stone walls, but by a square of about 70 feet in length and width. The evil spirit's corpse had sunk into the center of this square. Yun Ruoyan told Xiao what she had seen, and at Xiao's request, Yun Ruoyan swam from the eight-legged evil spirit's body to a stone wall. Yun Ruoyan floated in the water, holding the core in one hand and brushing away the thick moss, mud and weeds on the stone walls with the other. Bit by bit, the stone walls began to appear before her eyes. Yun Ruoyan's eyes widened as she stared at the scene before her. Chapter 188. Yun Ruoyan had thought that the stone walls were just ordinary stone walls, but to her surprise, after she brushed away the mud and moss that had accumulated over a long period of time, uneven carvings began to appear on the stone walls. These uneven carvings gradually took the shape of a dragon. No, there wasn't just one dragon. Yun Ruoyan discovered dozens of dragons of various sizes on this single wall. Their heads were of different shapes and sizes, and their bodies were intertwined with one another, making it difficult for her to discern what they were. Both the dragon's head and the dragon's body were incredibly lifelike, as if they could come to life at any moment. When Yun Ruoyan stared at the eyes of one of the dragon's heads, the eyes seemed to move. Even the usually calm Yun Ruoyan couldn't help but be shocked. "Mistress, leave this place immediately right now," Xiao suddenly cried out in Yun Ruoyan's mind. "What's the matter, Xiao?" Yun Ruoyan hurriedly asked. "Mistress, this is the demonic dragon grotto and it's an extremely dangerous place. We have to leave as soon as possible." "What's a demonic dragon grotto? How come I've never heard of it before?" Xiao's fear was unprecedented, so despite Yun Ruoyan's suspicions, she hurriedly swam toward the surface. As she swam, Yun Ruoyan discovered that the four walls were about 100 feet tall, and they formed a large depression at the bottom of the lake. Earlier she had followed the eight-legged evil spirit's corpse into this depression. As Yun Ruoyan slowly swam out of the depression, she began to see daylight. As she floated above the depression, she subconsciously turned around to look at the pitch-black depression beneath her feet. Yun Ruoyan suddenly had a feeling that there were countless pairs of blood-red eyes staring at her, and that something in the darkness was calling out to her. Suddenly, a deep and distant sorrowful wail came from the depths of the pit. At the same time, there were actually countless red eyes in the depths of the pitch-black darkness that were constantly flickering. "What a strong aura of resentment!" Xiao exclaimed. "Mistress, hurry up and leave." Yun Ruoyan was startled out of her reverie by Qiuqiu's cries. She quickly turned her gaze away and swam toward the surface of the lake, not daring to stop or look back. In the pitch-black darkness, the countless pairs of eyes were still flickering with a weak red light, and the sorrowful cries were becoming more and more desolate and resentful. On the shore of the lake, the quaint snake ring on Lin Qingqian's left ring finger suddenly became hot. Lin Qingqian, who was concentrating on the lake, couldn't help but shift her gaze to the ring. To her surprise, she discovered that the two eyes of the snake carving on the ring were flickering with a faint red light. Lin Qingqian brought her left hand closer to her eyes to take a closer look, but the red light had suddenly disappeared. In the past, Lin Qingqian would have definitely tried to figure out what was going on, but her attention was currently focused on Yun Ruoyan and Zhou Xian. As a result, she tossed this strange scene to the back of her mind and returned her gaze to the surface of the lake. As for Zhao Ming, he had already dived into the lake with the fish core in his mouth, and Zhou Yifeng had no way of stopping him. As for Zhao Ming, he had already dived into the lake with the fish core in his mouth, and Zhou Yifeng had no way of stopping him. As a result, he could only try his best to stop Rong Yueshan. Rong Yueshan's ability to hold her breath underwater wasn't any less than Zhou Yifeng's, and their cultivations weren't too far apart. In the blink of an eye, the two of them had already exchanged dozens of blows. Although they weren't able to defeat each other, they were able to keep each other at bay. As Yun Ruoyan swam up from the bottom of the lake, she happened to bump into Zhao Ming. Zhao Ming had also stopped midway to look down because of the strange cries coming from the bottom of the lake, and the two of them met eye to eye. Because of the strange sensation she had felt from the pit, Yun Ruoyan had forgotten that she was still holding on to the eight-legged evil spirit's beast core, and she hadn't put it away yet. By the time she saw Zhao Ming, it was already too late. Zhao Ming's eyes lit up when he saw the high-grade beast core in Yun Ruoyan's hand. Previously, he hadn't had any intentions of fighting over the beast core, but now that the treasure was right in front of him, his wildness had been ignited. The reason Kongming Academy sent its students to this secluded trial was to get the best out of the worst. Fighting and looting were all permitted, and even killing wasn't strictly forbidden. Compared to hunting magical beasts, the majority of the students who entered the trial preferred to rob and steal beasts openly and covertly. This was because not only could they increase the number of magical beast cores they obtained by robbing and stealing beasts openly and covertly, they could also deal a blow to their opponents. For example, if a student managed to obtain a high-grade beast core, there were only two ways for other students to surpass that student. One was to quickly hunt down two high-grade beasts, and in the process the student couldn't obtain anything else. The chances of that happening were far too low. The other method, however, was much easier: to take the beast core in the student's hands for himself, and he would be able to easily surpass his opponent. Of course, the prerequisite for this method was that one had to have the ability to steal the beast core, or they would end up losing the bait. When Zhao Ming saw the eight-legged evil spirit's core in Yun Ruoyan's hand, he immediately swam toward her. Yun Ruoyan smiled coldly as she looked at the strange man swimming toward her. With no one else around, she could have summoned the Feilai blade and killed him, but when she recalled Qiuqiu's words that she needed a life-and-death battle to break through to the peak of 7th rank, she gave up on the idea of using the Feilai blade. She put the eight-legged evil spirit's inner core into her storage bag, then pulled out her dark steel dagger and held it in front of her. Her eyes were fixed on Zhao Ming, who was swimming toward her. Zhao Ming clenched his fists and raised them toward Yun Ruoyan. Beneath the surface of the lake, the two of them couldn't speak, and they didn't need to. They could see the desire for battle in each other's eyes. Boom! Zhao Ming's fist was the first to strike Yun Ruoyan. Even in the water, his fist was still quite powerful, and Yun Ruoyan could only see 7 or 8 bubbles of various sizes surge toward her. Naturally, Yun Ruoyan wouldn't take the attack head-on. Instead, she hurriedly dodged, causing the bubbles to explode in the water with a dull thud. These bubbles didn't seem very powerful, but one of the smaller bubbles rushed into a school of fish that was swimming toward her. With a loud pop, the dozen or so fish were instantly pulverized into a bloody mist. "Mistress, this person's violent and vicious, and he doesn't hold back at all. You have to be careful," Qiuqiu warned Yun Ruoyan. There was a certain type of person who was usually amiable and kind, even giving off the impression that he was a righteous person, but that was only toward his own people. To those who weren't on his side, he was extremely violent. Usually he wouldn't make a move, but once he did he wouldn't show any mercy. This type of person wouldn't kill easily, but once he did he wouldn't show any mercy. Zhao Ming was this type of person, and he was clearly intent on killing Yun Ruoyan now. He felt that once he stole Yun Ruoyan's beast core, Zhao Ming wouldn't let the matter rest. In that case he might as well kill him. Boom. Another dull thud. Zhao Ming immediately followed up with a second punch. This time he had clearly raised his cultivation, and the bubbles formed a chain that flew toward Yun Ruoyan. Just as Yun Ruoyan dodged the attack, Zhao Ming followed up with a series of punches. Boom boom boom. The highly destructive bubbles surrounded Yun Ruoyan, drowning her in them. Only then did Zhao Ming stop his attacks, and as he did the bubbles began to explode one by one. There was a series of explosions as if they were about to cause sparks to fly in the water. A smile appeared on Zhao Ming's face. He'd grown up by the sea, and this technique was one of his signature moves. In the sea, even an adult shark would be severely injured and its innards would be pulverized, much less a mere human. Zhao Ming thought that Yun Ruoyan was dead for sure, and all he had to do was collect the spoils of war. However, to his surprise, Yun Ruoyan's figure remained unscathed even after the bubbles exploded. Yun Ruoyan's arms were crossed in front of her eyes. Even in the water she stood tall and straight. Her ink-black hair had been blown up by the explosion and it danced in the air. At this moment Yun Ruoyan's entire body was exuding a strange, powerful aura. How is this possible? Zhao Ming stared at Yun Ruoyan's figure. There was a barrier of spiritual energy around her body. After all, only a peak 8th rank cultivator could form such a barrier, but Zhao Ming could sense that Yun Ruoyan was only a peak 7th rank cultivator. On the other hand, Zhao Ming had only just entered peak 7th rank, and the two of them were equally matched. This was why Zhao Ming had been so focused on attacking, not giving Yun Ruoyan a chance to catch her breath. He had wanted to use his fierce attacks and his sure kill technique to kill Yun Ruoyan before she could even retaliate. What Zhao Ming hadn't expected was that Yun Ruoyan would be able to form a barrier of spiritual energy around her, allowing her to avoid being injured by his attacks. In truth, Yun Ruoyan had indeed been in a perilous situation. She had wanted to rely on her own cultivation to survive the explosions, but the first one had blown up her hair and torn off her veil. Yun Ruoyan didn't dare take the risk. She immediately used the bracelet's power to raise her cultivation from 7th rank to 8th rank. Then she used all the spiritual energy in her body to resist the explosive force of the key bomb, and a protective barrier of spiritual energy formed around her. This is impossible. Zhao Ming still couldn't believe what he was seeing. How could she have broken through the barrier while being attacked so fiercely? Chapter 189. Zhao Ming's spiritual energy exploded in the lake, causing ripples to form on the surface of the lake. Bystanders couldn't tell what these ripples were, but the Qin Kingdom students who were with Zhao Ming could. Look, that's the boss's killing technique, Iron Fist Chi Bullet. A chubby youth from the Qin Kingdom team exclaimed excitedly. The boss's Iron Fist Chi Bullet is strong enough to kill a shark. Whoever's underwater, they're dead for sure, huh? The youth's voice was so gleeful that the rest of the Qin Kingdom students began to laugh along with him. Sister Ruoyan's going to be fine. Lin Xianxia stared at the arrogant crowd, her heart filled with worry, anxiety, and anger. The chubby youth looked at Lin Xianxia and continued to laugh. Your sister Ruoyan's going to die for sure, so don't think you'll get away with it, haha. Lin Xianxia had been holding her bow for such a long time that she was already on the verge of losing control. Now that she was enraged by the fat youth, her hands began to tremble uncontrollably. Her hand that was holding the arrow trembled, and the tiger canine arrowhead shot straight for the fat youth's body. Ah! The chubby youth hadn't expected Lin Xianxia to suddenly shoot at him, and he was caught off guard. He let out a pained scream as he fell backwards, only to be caught by a student behind him. This arrow had been a complete accident, and Lin Xianxia hadn't aimed at him at all. As a result, the tiger canine arrowhead only pierced his shoulder, not any vital organs. But even so, the pain was excruciating. The chubby youth screamed incessantly as he glared at Lin Xianxia hatefully. I told you to spout nonsense. Lin Xianxia pretended that the arrow had been shot on purpose. This arrow was a warning. If you spout nonsense again, I'll shoot your head with my next arrow. If I'm not spouting nonsense. Let's make a bet that your sister Ruoyan is definitely dead. Are you up for it? The chubby youth asked Lin Qingxue as his teammates tended to his wounds. Sure, what do you want to bet? Lin Qingxue couldn't stand being goaded into action. Haha. The fat youth sneered and said, if your sister is killed by our leader, it means you lose. Not only are you not allowed to avenge her, but you also have to kneel down and kowtow to me 3 times and call me son-in-law 3 times. What if I win? Lin Qingxue asked. If our leader can't kill your sister, I'll consider it my loss. Then I'll kneel down and kowtow to you 3 times and call you great aunt 3 times. How's that? The chubby young man replied. Lin Qingxue thought for a moment. What if Sister Ruoyan kills your boss? He. The fat teenager laughed and said, that's something that will never happen. Within the lake, Zhou Yifeng and Rong Yueshan stopped fighting at the same time when they heard the fat youth say that Yun Ruoyan would die. Both of them took a deep breath and plunged into the water. Zhou Yifeng was worried about Yun Ruoyan's safety, but Rong Yuehong couldn't stop thinking about the high-rank beast core. If Yun Ruoyan was really dead, she would have to find something on her body to prove that she had killed Yun Ruoyan, and then claim credit from Rong Tianling. Both of them held their breaths and swam with all their might. About 20 meters down they saw Zhao Ming's figure as well as Yun Ruoyan, who was 7 or 8 meters away from him. Zhou Yifeng hurriedly swam toward Yun Ruoyan. On the other hand, Rong Yueshan's eyes were sharp. When she saw the defensive barrier around Yun Ruoyan's body, she couldn't help but be shocked. Yun Ruoyan was a peak 8th rank blade master. In that case, there was no way that Rong Tianling, who had just become a 7th rank blade master, would be able to kill her. But when she entered Kongming Academy, Rong Tianling had given her a death order. She had to kill Yun Ruoyan no matter what. If she couldn't kill Yun Ruoyan on her own, then perhaps she could think of some other way. Rong Yueshan's mind raced. When Rong Yueshan's gaze landed on Zhao Ming's back, an idea suddenly popped up in her head. Rong Yueshan recalled the conflict between Zhao Ming and the handsome youth from her team, and a trace of vengeance appeared in her heart. Without any hesitation she slowly approached Zhao Ming. Zhao Ming was still in shock over Yun Ruoyan's breakthrough, and he didn't even notice that someone was behind him. Yun Ruoyan removed her hands from her eyes and saw Zhou Yifeng approaching her. She gestured at him from afar, then raised her dagger and prepared to attack Zhao Ming. It was Zhao Ming's turn to attack, and Yun Ruoyan estimated that he had expended more than half of his spiritual energy. Now it was her turn to attack. However, just as she was about to attack, she saw Rong Yueshan slowly approaching Zhao Ming's back. In Rong Yueshan's hand was a dagger about the same size and length as Yun Ruoyan's. Yun Ruoyan's intuition told her that Rong Yueshan was about to launch a sneak attack. She didn't know what Rong Yueshan was up to, but she still gestured to Zhao Ming to be careful. Zhao Ming didn't react in time to Yun Ruoyan's signal. When he turned his head back in confusion, a dagger accurately landed on his throat. Then the sharp blade of the dagger ruthlessly cut his throat. Bright red blood instantly gushed out from the cut on his neck. Zhou Yifeng's eyes widened in shock. As far as he was concerned, Rong Yueshan and Zhao Ming didn't have much of a grudge against each other, and it was rare for her to kill someone so easily, even among the beastkin. Rong Yueshan raised her dagger and sliced across Zhao Ming's throat. Zhao Ming stared at Rong Yueshan in disbelief. His mouth was wide open and a small pellet slid out of his mouth. Rong Yueshan, on the other hand, smiled sinisterly at Yun Ruoyan. She threw away the dagger in her hand, kicked Zhao Ming's body and swam toward the surface of the lake. By now she was almost done holding her breath. Zhao Ming's throat and trachea had been sliced open, and even if he had a life-saving pill he wouldn't be able to swallow it. Rong Yueshan's move was the real deal. Yun Ruoyan and Zhou Yifeng hurriedly followed Rong Yueshan toward the surface of the lake. As they passed by Zhao Ming they didn't even look at him. Zhao Ming's corpse slowly sank to the bottom of the lake like a lifeless puppet. It sank right into the pitch-black recess of the cave. Just as Yun Ruoyan and Zhou Yifeng were about to resurface, a deep, mournful dragon roar came from the recess once more. Yun Ruoyan couldn't help but turn around to look. This time, however, Yun Ruoyan broke out in a cold sweat. At some point, the darkness had turned into a sea of flames, and within the flames, numerous black dragons were writhing and struggling. The cries grew louder and louder, like needles stabbing into Yun Ruoyan's eardrums. But at the same time, The cries seemed to summon Yun Ruoyan, causing her to clutch her head in pain as she swam toward the bottom. Oh no, the demonic dragon's grotto is stained with human blood. Qiuqiu could sense Yun Ruoyan's condition from the bracelet's pocket dimension. Mistress, wake up. Don't let this aura control you. Zhou Yifeng swam in front of Yun Ruoyan. Just as they were about to resurface, he turned back to look, only to see Yun Ruoyan clutching her head in pain as she swam back toward the bottom. Zhou Yifeng's breath was about to run out, but he forced himself to turn around and chase after Yun Ruoyan. Just then Rong Yueshan broke the surface of the water. As she rushed ashore, she yelled at Zhao Ming's group, "Run! Yun Ruoyan killed your leader and she's coming to kill you now." "What did you say?" The chubby youth stared at Rong Yueshan in disbelief. "What did you say happened to our boss?" By this time, Rong Yueshan had already been dragged ashore by the handsome youth. She pretended to be frightened and said, "Your leader tried to steal my high-rank beast core, but he was killed. Yun Ruoyan's humiliated into a rage, and I'm sure she'll slaughter every single one of you when she comes back up. You'd better run away quickly." "What do you think, fatty?" It was Lin Qingshue's turn to laugh. "I told you that your boss would die at my sister's hands, didn't I? Why don't you kowtow and call me Grand Aunt 3 times? Call you Grand Aunt?" The chubby youth's face darkened. "I'll King kill you right here and now." The chubby youth looked plump and bloated, but unexpectedly he pounced at Lin Qingxue with the speed of a leopard when he leapt up. Lin Qingxue shot out an arrow, but the youth nimbly dodged it in midair. Before Lin Qingxue could pull out another arrow, the youth's large body was already on top of her. Seeing this, Lin Qingchen drew her soft sword from her waist and stabbed at the youth. The youth also caught a steel sword thrown at him by one of his companions and began to fight with Lin Qingxue. Apart from Zhao Ming and Miss Li, the rest of the Qin Kingdom group attacked Lin Qingchen and Lin Qingxue together with the chubby youth. The Qin Kingdom group was different from Rong Yueshan's group. Almost all of Rong Yueshan's group were the spoiled heirs of the capital's aristocratic families. Although they had a decent cultivation, their fighting prowess was quite lacking. On the other hand, the Qin Kingdom's team was different. Zhao Ming had been a peak 7th rank blade master, just a hair's breadth away from 8th rank. The chubby youth was also a 6th rank blade master, slightly higher than Lin Qingchen's. The rest of the Qin Kingdom students were at least as strong as Lin Qingxue, and none of them were weak. Lin Qingchen still couldn't withstand the chubby youth's attacks. The chubby youth swung his knife at her and Lin Qingchen blocked it with her sword, only to be knocked away. After Lin Qingxue injured 2 of her companions, her bow was grabbed by several Qin Kingdom students. "Let go," the students shouted in unison. "I'm not letting go," Lin Qingxue shouted back. Chapter 190. If you don't let go, I'll kill you. A few of the youths tried to snatch the bow from Lin Qingshue's hands, all of them wary of the bow's power. "I won't let go even if I die." Lin Qingxue gripped the bow stubbornly. This bow was given to her by Zhou Yifeng, and Lin Qingxue knew how important it was to him, so she wouldn't let go. "All right, then I'll kill you." One of the youths pulled out his sword and stabbed it into Lin Qingshue's arm. Lin Qingxue cried out in pain, but she still held on to the bow, refusing to let go. Blood flowed from the wound on her arm onto the bow. "Idiot, let go." Lin Qingchen panicked when she saw Lin Qingshue's situation. Her soft sword had been knocked away by the fat youth. Now she could only fight with the fat youth with her bare hands. She was also surrounded by danger. "Let go. Keep stabbing her." The Qin Kingdom students were infuriated by Lin Qingshue's stubbornness. The sword-wielding youth stabbed Lin Qingshue's other arm, but this time, Lin Qingsxue gritted her teeth and didn't make a sound. In her panic, Lin Qingchen couldn't focus on the enemy, and she was finally subdued by the fat youth. The chubby young man placed the steel sword on her neck and said fiercely, "I will kill both of you to avenge our boss." "How can you be so sure that Rong Yueshan's words are true?" Lin Qingchen asked. "Perhaps your boss is still in the water. Maybe someone is purposely trying to sow discord so that the mantis stalks the cicada unaware of the oriole behind." The fat youth couldn't help but turn to Rong Yueshan. Rong Yueshan began, "I'm not lying to you. I saw your boss being killed by Yun Ruoyan with my own eyes." Yun Ruoyan was an 8th rank blade master, and she'd condensed a barrier of spiritual energy around her body to block his attack. Then she'd used her dagger to slit his throat. Then his corpse sank to the bottom of the lake. Rong Yueshan's words infuriated everyone in the Qin Kingdom's team. "I'll go down and get the boss back up," a skinny youth said as he prepared to jump into the water. "No." Rong Yueshan stopped them. "Yun Ruoyan also has a fish core and she can breathe freely underwater. If she hasn't come out yet, it's possible that she's waiting for the two of you to go underwater so that she can attack you." "Then what should we do?" the chubby youth asked angrily. "Don't you have hostages with you? Take them away and wait for Yun Ruoyan and Yun Ruoyan to come out." Rong Yueshan suggested, "I can see that they have a good relationship with each other. When the time comes, we'll have them respectfully deliver your leader's corpse to you. No, not only the corpse, you can even ask for a high-grade inner core of a magical beast." The rest of the Qin Kingdom team agreed with Rong Yueshan's suggestion. The 7 or 8 of them decided to take Lin Qingchen and Lin Qingxia away first, leaving one person to deliver the message. "I'll stay," said Zhao Su, who had been silent all this while. She and Zhao Ming were both from the Qin Kingdom, but they weren't from the same family. They hadn't known each other for long, but she had a good impression of Zhao Ming. Otherwise she wouldn't have lent him her personal fish core. She was both saddened and surprised by Zhao Ming's sudden death. She could tell that Zhao Ming's cultivation was quite high, and underwater combat was his forte. Furthermore, with the help of her fish core, how could he have died so easily? As a result, Zhao Su had her suspicions. However, as an outsider to the team, it wasn't appropriate for her to voice her suspicions. She wanted to wait until the very end to see how things would turn out. "Zhao Su, you can't stay. We're not part of this team." Miss Li, who was standing beside Zhao Su, tugged at her sleeve. "It's fine, you can go with them." Zhao Su glanced at Miss Li, then at the rest of the Qin Kingdom team. "I'm not part of your team, so I'm sure Yun Ruoyan won't vent her anger on me if I stay behind to deliver the message." "All right, then we'll have to trouble you, Miss Zhao," the chubby youth said before leading his team away with Lin Qingxue and Lin Qingchen. Second brother Zhao, she still won't let go. Even after the skinny youth stabbed her twice and cut her twice, she still held onto her bow tightly. This surprised the youth quite a bit. Although Lin Qingxue's wounds weren't fatal, she was still bleeding quite a bit. Blood continued to drip from the ink-black bow, and it seemed as though she wouldn't let go even if she died. "Qingxue, are you all right?" Lin Qingchen looked at Lin Qingxue's stubborn face, her eyes filled with both pity and anger. She turned to the chubby youth. "If anything happens to my sister, none of you will get anything." "Forget it," the chubby youth said. "Let her take it and we'll take it with us." This chubby young man who was called Second Brother Zhao was now the leader of this team. "This Yun Ruoyan has a very high cultivation and she's very cunning. We should work together to deal with her," Rong Yueshan suggested. The chubby youth didn't know much about Yun Ruoyan, and seeing that none of Rong Yueshan's team was strong enough to pose a threat to her, he agreed to temporarily team up to deal with her. The Qin Kingdom team escorted Lin Qingxue and Lin Qingchen back to the oasis, and Rong Yueshan's team left with them. Miss Li didn't know what to do when she looked at Zhao Su, who insisted on staying behind. Zhao Su had her own team, but because she had gotten along well with Miss Li, she often joined her own team. As a result, she ended up getting separated from her own team and ended up staying with Miss Li's. However, Miss Li's team had been caught off guard by the 8-legged evil spirit as soon as they entered the trial, and almost all of them had been killed. Now Miss Li was the only one left. She had wanted to find Zhao Su's team and join them, but she didn't expect such a turn of events. She wanted to leave with the rest of the team, but she didn't want to leave Zhao Su alone. "Why don't you go with them for now?" Zhao Su didn't seem to mind. "I'll go find you as soon as I get through to them, and then we'll go find my brother's team together." When Miss Li heard this, she left with the Qin Kingdom team without any qualms. Zhao Su stood by the lakeside, looking at the calm surface of the lake as she waited. In the lake, Yun Ruoyan seemed to have been summoned and she swam toward the bottom of the lake. Zhou Yifeng quickly caught up to her. As soon as he saw her expression, he could tell that something was wrong with her. By this time, Zhou Yifeng was almost out of breath and he forcefully pulled Yun Ruoyan toward the surface of the lake. Yun Ruoyan, on the other hand, seemed to be possessed as she swam toward the bottom of the lake. Zhou Yifeng had no choice but to slap the back of her neck, knocking her unconscious, before he finally brought her to the surface of the lake. Zhou Yifeng emerged from the water and gasped for air. He felt as if his lungs were about to explode. After gasping for air for a long time, when his breathing was smooth and his head was no longer dizzy, he realized that something was wrong with his surroundings. Where are they? Why are they all gone? Zhou Yifeng looked at his surroundings. By the lakeside, which had been bustling with activity, there was only a single girl standing there looking at him. Zhou Yifeng felt that she looked familiar, but he didn't know her well. He didn't have time to respond to her, nor did he have time to ask what had happened. Where had everyone gone? He hurriedly carried Yun Ruoyan to the shore. When Zhao Su saw the two of them emerge from the water, she walked closer to the lakeside. Now that the two of them were on the shore, she stopped when she was a few feet away from them. She said, "I stayed behind to pass on a message for someone." Zhou Yifeng laid Yun Ruoyan down on a flat surface, checking to see if she had choked on the water or if she was injured anywhere. "She'll be fine." Zhao Su glanced at Yun Ruoyan. "She's holding the pearl in her mouth so she won't choke on the water." As if only just hearing Zhao Su's words, Zhou Yifeng turned back to look at her coolly. "Who are you passing on a message for, and what message?" "I'm passing on a message for the Qin Kingdom team. According to Rong Yueshan, their leader was killed by Yun Ruoyan, so they took two of your companions with them and had Yun Ruoyan bring their leader's corpse and a bottle of beast core to them in exchange." Zhao Su paused for a moment before asking, "Did you really kill Zhao Ming?" Zhou Yifeng replied coolly, "Yes, he's dead, but we didn't do it." "Does she look like she killed someone?" Zhou Yifeng pointed at the unconscious Yun Ruoyan. Her hair was a mess and half her face was covered. Because she had been submerged in the water for so long, her face was pale. The veil that Yun Ruoyan had always worn was gone, and the part of her face that wasn't covered by the veil was charred black. It looked like rotten flesh, but at the same time it wasn't. In any case, it was an uncomfortable sight. If she didn't kill him, then who did? Zhao Su's heart sank when she heard Zhou Yifeng say that Zhao Ming was indeed dead. It was Rong Yueshan. "I saw her do it with my own eyes," Zhou Yifeng replied. "She snuck up behind Zhao Ming when he wasn't paying attention, then slit his throat and windpipe with a dagger. I saw it with my own eyes." Rong Yueshan? Zhao Su was shocked. Why would she kill Zhao Ming? Although they were all competitors in the trial and it was common for them to kill each other, there was always a reason for it. Either there was a grudge or there was a conflict of interest. Otherwise, they wouldn't have killed someone they didn't even know. "I don't know either," Zhou Yifeng replied. When he saw Rong Yueshan slit Zhao Ming's throat with a dagger, he couldn't figure out why she would do such a thing. Perhaps. Zhou Yifeng suddenly thought of something. Perhaps she killed Zhao Ming in order to frame Yun Ruoyan, and use the Qin Kingdom team to deal with us. Zhao Su sighed. "Whatever you say is possible, but it's also possible that it's all a lie. I'm telling the truth. It's up to you whether you believe it or not." Zhou Yifeng didn't explain any further. He continued in a cold voice, "Go back and tell them that we'll be looking for them tomorrow. If any of our people are harmed in the slightest, we won't let it go." Chapter 191. Zhao Su left after delivering the message, leaving Yun Ruoyan and Zhou Yifeng alone in the vast oasis. Yun Ruoyan's pale complexion gradually improved, but she still hadn't woken up. Zhou Yifeng was anxious. Although he couldn't find any injuries on Yun Ruoyan, he still took out a spiritual pill from his storage pouch and tried to feed it to her. Yun Ruoyan's brows were tightly furrowed and her mouth was tightly shut. It wasn't easy for Zhou Yifeng to force the pill into her mouth. Without a choice, Zhou Yifeng could only pry Yun Ruoyan's mouth open and force the pill into her mouth. With great difficulty, Zhou Yifeng finally managed to pry open her mouth and force the pill into her mouth. But he was worried that the pill was too large and would get stuck if he fed it while lying there. Zhou Yifeng thought for a moment before helping Yun Ruoyan up, letting her lean against his chest. Then he pinched her mouth and finally fed her the pill. Feeding Yun Ruoyan a pill made Zhou Yifeng sweat profusely, and he felt even more tired than fighting. Zhou Yifeng let out a long breath and couldn't help but look down at Yun Ruoyan, who was still leaning against his shoulder. At this moment, Yun Ruoyan's appearance wasn't at all flattering. Her long black hair was covered in weeds and mud, and a large tuft of hair had covered half her face. She looked rather unkempt. There was also a large piece of rotten flesh peeking out from under her hair, and it seemed to be in urgent need of treatment. Zhou Yifeng carefully placed Yun Ruoyan on the ground, then went to the lakeside to get some water. He tore off a piece of cloth from his clothes and began to wipe Yun Ruoyan's face. Zhou Yifeng removed the large tuft of hair that was stuck to Yun Ruoyan's right cheek, revealing a dark red rotten flesh. Zhou Yifeng frowned slightly. He thought that this was the birthmark on Yun Ruoyan's face. In the imperial territory he had seen Yun Ruoyan's face oozing with pus. Moreover, Yun Ruoyan's appearance had left a deep impression on Zhou Yifeng. The next time he met Yun Ruoyan, her appearance had undergone an earth-shattering transformation. She had become so beautiful that she didn't seem like the same person as before, especially after she covered the wounds on her face with a veil. After seeing the latter so many times, Zhou Yifeng had almost forgotten about the birthmark on Yun Ruoyan's face. But what Zhou Yifeng hadn't expected was that the wound on Yun Ruoyan's face would be so severe. Why hasn't it healed after so long? Zhou Yifeng was a little surprised. Don't the Lin and Yun families have any medicine for their faces? As Zhou Yifeng tended to the wounds on Yun Ruoyan's face, something even more shocking happened. The rotten flesh on Yun Ruoyan's face didn't actually grow on her face. As Zhou Yifeng wiped it away, the rotten flesh on her face was wiped away, revealing her pure white skin. Zhou Yifeng's eyes widened as he wiped Yun Ruoyan's face, bit by bit as she revealed her true appearance. His white and flawless cheeks had a tinge of redness in his paleness. His long eyebrows were slightly furrowed and his eyes were tightly shut. His eyelashes were trembling as if he was having a bad dream. Her tightly pursed red lips still had traces of his earlier pinching. Zhou Yifeng's heart suddenly thumped wildly when he saw the faint finger marks on Yun Ruoyan's lips. He hurriedly looked away. Suddenly Yun Ruoyan let out a soft moan. She slowly opened her eyes, finally waking up from her coma. "You're awake?" Zhou Yifeng hurriedly asked. Yun Ruoyan tried to push herself up, but the back of her neck felt incredibly sore. She frowned deeply. "What happened to me?" Zhou Yifeng reached out to pull her up, then told her about how she had suddenly lost control of herself underwater. "Your neck must be hurting," Zhou Yifeng said apologetically. "I might have been a little too harsh. Where are Xianxia and Xianxia?" Only then did Yun Ruoyan realize that two important people were missing from her side. "They were captured," Zhou Yifeng frowned. Zhou Yifeng frowned. "Rong Yueshan framed you for Zhao Ming's murder, so the Qin Kingdom team captured Xianxia and Qianqin to deal with you. Is Zhao Ming the man whose neck Rong Yueshan slit?" Yun Ruoyan asked. Yun Ruoyan had been underwater the entire time, so she didn't know what had happened on the shore. Of course, she didn't know that two groups of people had come looking for trouble while she was underwater. Zhou Yifeng roughly explained what had happened on the shore to Yun Ruoyan. No wonder Rong Yueshan killed Zhao Ming without any warning. Yun Ruoyan suddenly understood. So she was trying to frame me, then use the Qin Kingdom team's hatred for me to deal with me. Zhou Yifeng wasn't too clear about Yun Ruoyan's history with the Rong family, and he was rather curious as to why Rong Yueshan would go to such lengths to deal with Yun Ruoyan. Yun Ruoyan briefly explained her history to Zhou Yifeng. After some discussion, the two of them decided to follow Rong Yueshan's orders and rescue Qianqin and Qianxia first. "I'll go get that Zhao Ming right now." Yun Ruoyan stood up, preparing to dive back into the water. "Don't go." Zhou Yifeng hurriedly stopped her. "There's something strange about the water. I heard some sort of sound coming from it." "You heard it too?" Yun Ruoyan hurriedly asked. "In that case, did you see the illusion of a fire dragon underwater?" "Yes." No. Zhou Yifeng nodded, then shook his head. "I only heard the sound, not the illusion. However, the sound didn't affect me, but it seemed to affect you. You can't go, so I'll go." Yun Ruoyan felt a little apprehensive as she recalled the feeling of being summoned by the sound, as if some mysterious, frightening force was approaching her. Zhou Yifeng stood up. Yun Ruoyan didn't stop him and he began walking toward the lake. "Wait a moment," Yun Ruoyan called out from behind him. "That place is very deep and you won't be able to reach it just by holding your breath." Yun Ruoyan stood up and walked to Zhou Yifeng's side. She took off the pellet from her neck and handed it to him. "This is the pellet of a fish monster. If you hold it in your mouth, you'll be able to breathe underwater for 1 to 4 hours. Once you find Zhao Ming's body, come back up immediately." Zhou Yifeng looked at the translucent pellet in his palm, and the image of Yun Ruoyan holding it in her mouth appeared before his eyes. He couldn't help but blush. All right, got it. He lowered his head, not daring to look at Yun Ruoyan. He turned around and walked toward the lake, diving into the water and disappearing. Yun Ruoyan stood by the shore and looked at the lake, the image of the black dragon being roasted in the fire repeatedly appearing in her mind. Because she was preoccupied, Yun Ruoyan didn't notice Zhou Yifeng's unusual behavior. She stood quietly by the lake for a long time, only reacting when her stomach growled in protest. Yun Ruoyan didn't want to go hunting, so she decided to roast some fish nearby. She walked to the edge of the lake and bent down to look at the water. A flawless face was reflected on the lake's surface. Yun Ruoyan couldn't help but touch the right side of her face. The smooth texture told her that she hadn't seen wrongly, and that the birthmark on her face had indeed fallen off. No wonder Zhou Yifeng had been looking at her so strangely, Yun Ruoyan thought. The fake birthmark on her face was actually waterproof to a certain extent, but she had truly been soaking in the water for too long, more than 6 hours in total. Even a piece of metal would become rusty after soaking for so long, let alone a few ordinary herbs. Forget it, I've seen it. Luckily Zhou Yifeng's one of us. After a brief moment of frustration, Yun Ruoyan let go of the matter. Zhou Yifeng dove into the lake, following the direction in which he remembered Zhao Ming sinking. Very quickly he found the 8-legged evil spirit's corpse at the bottom of the lake. Coincidentally, Zhao Ming's corpse had sunk right on top of its body. Zhou Yifeng didn't waste a single second. He quickly swam up with Zhao Ming's corpse. When he reached the surface of the water, he gasped for breath for a long time. Only when his breathing had stabilized did he swim back to the shore. Once he was ashore, he placed Zhao Ming in a dry spot, then took out the pearl that Yun Ruoyan had given him and held it in his hand. You're so fast. Yun Ruoyan's voice came from afar. Zhou Yifeng turned and walked toward her. Yun Ruoyan took the pearl from Zhou Yifeng and hung it around her neck. I've already caught 2 fish and prepared them. I'm waiting for you to roast them. Zhou Yifeng had to be very tired from repeatedly diving into the water, and Yun Ruoyan felt a little embarrassed to see him so busy preparing food. But Yun Ruoyan didn't know a single thing about cooking, and she couldn't even tell if a fish was cooked or raw, so she could only rely on Zhou Yifeng. Here. Zhou Yifeng handed a relatively large fish to Yun Ruoyan, and she accepted it without hesitation. Only when her stomach felt full did she slow down. Yun Ruoyan glanced at Zhou Yifeng, who was busy roasting the fish, and said, I didn't mean to hide it from you. Zhou Yifeng paused, not looking at Yun Ruoyan. It's fine. From Zhou Yifeng's expression, Yun Ruoyan knew that he had a grudge against her. Back in the imperial territory, Zhou Yifeng had told her about his beastkin identity as soon as they'd met. It was clear that he trusted her deeply. After that, Zhou Yifeng had risked his life to save her several times, and Yun Ruoyan had already come to see him as a trustworthy partner. Zhou Yifeng treated her the same way, so she could understand if Zhou Yifeng were to blame her for hiding her true appearance. You might not be familiar with my family's situation, Yun Ruoyan explained. If I were to reveal my true appearance, my father would likely use me as a pawn, and I might even be married off to a member of the imperial family. It's really fine. This time Zhou Yifeng turned to look at Yun Ruoyan seriously. I can understand. Your appearance is simply too beautiful. Zhou Yifeng held himself back for a long time, but he still couldn't describe Yun Ruoyan's beauty. Haha, is that so? Yun Ruoyan smiled bitterly. I've been used to being ugly since I was young, so I don't really care about my appearance anymore. At this moment a burnt smell filled the air. Your fish is burnt. Yun Ruoyan pointed at the fish Zhou Yifeng was roasting. Chapter 192. After eating, the two of them discussed how they would rescue Lin Xianxia and Lin Qingchen the next day, then went to bed. The night passed uneventfully and soon, it was the second day. The two of them woke up at dawn, but they were not in a hurry to set off. Rong Yueshan and the Qin kingdom must have thought of many ways to deal with Yun Ruoyan over the course of the night, and they were just waiting for the two of them to walk right into their trap. As long as Yun Ruoyan didn't appear, Lin Qingchen and Lin Qingxia wouldn't be in any danger. If they were to rush over recklessly and Yun Ruoyan was captured, Rong Yueshan would likely kill everyone present, and Lin Qingchen and Lin Qingxia would be in even greater danger. As a result, the two of them had to be fully prepared before they set off. Zhou Yifeng found some soft, sturdy twigs in the forest and made a bow for himself as well as a few wooden arrows. Here, take this. Yun Ruoyan took out 2 items from her storage pouch and handed them to Zhou Yifeng. When Zhou Yifeng looked up, he saw 2 tiger canine arrowheads. You actually have 2 arrows? Where did you get them? I dug them out from the 8-legged evil spirit's body while I was looking for its beast core, Yun Ruoyan replied. It took Zhou Yifeng 2 arrows to kill the 8-legged evil spirit. Because its skin was too thick, the 2 arrows didn't penetrate its body. Instead they stayed inside. Yun Ruoyan happened to have dug them out when she was digging for the beast core. Because the arrows weren't easy to carry, she used her dark steel dagger to pry them out of the body. Zhou Yifeng took the 2 tiger canine arrowheads and attached them to the wooden arrows. Now he had another secret weapon. Yun Ruoyan felt that it wasn't enough, so she continued searching through the forest. Finally, with Qiuqiu's help, she found a powerful weapon. Just like that, the two of them dragged their feet until evening. Only then did they pick up Zhao Ming's corpse and set off according to the route Zhao Su had given them. As the two of them walked, they suddenly heard the angry roar of a magical beast in the distance. They couldn't help but look in the direction of the sound. Someone's hunting a high-rank beast, and from the sound, it seems to be close to the peak of high rank, Zhou Yifeng said. Yun Ruoyan looked in the direction of the voice, her expression serious. She only had a high-rank beast core in her hands. The time limit for the trial was only 3 days. Not counting the day he came, there were still 2 days left. Apart from these 3 teams, there were still 80 to 90 students. Those students were definitely not idling around either. They were all hunting magical beasts and collecting spiritual herbs. Yun Ruoyan was a little worried that she wouldn't be able to get a spot if things continued like this. In reality, the Qin Kingdom team and Rong Yueshan's team hadn't been idling around either. Apart from leaving behind a few people to watch over Lin Qingxue and Lin Qingchen, the rest of them had gone hunting. The oasis they were in was also very big, and there were all kinds of magical beasts of lower and middle grades. Within a day, the 2 teams had a good harvest. However, their gains paled in comparison to the high-rank beast cores in Yun Ruoyan's possession. The roar of a peak high-grade magical beast came from another oasis in the northernmost part of the oasis. Although it wasn't the largest oasis on the map, it was the deepest and most secluded of all, and the beasts there were of the highest rank. At this moment, in the hinterland of the oasis, a giant demon rock monkey that was as tall as 2 grown men was howling at the sky. It grabbed a tree trunk with one hand and whipped at the 3 people who were attacking it. Wang Meng, Yun Ruyao, and Pei Zio stood in 3 different directions, dodging the giant rock monkey's attacks as they approached it. Yi Qianying's cultivation was relatively low, and she watched the battle from afar. However, she had a trump card up her sleeve. Hidden within her clothes was a new concoction that she had concocted. However, the ingredients for this concoction were so difficult to obtain that she had only managed to concoct a small amount. Although it wasn't much, if used on a human, it could easily knock out 20 to 30 people at once. If it was used on magical beasts, it wouldn't be a problem to stun a dozen low-rank magical beasts at once, and it could stun no less than 5 mid-rank magical beasts. However, it could only stun 1 high-rank magical beast, and it had to be used within a short distance. As a result, Yi Qianying wouldn't use this trump card unless it was absolutely necessary. Wang Meng's cultivation was clearly the highest among them. He was the first to arrive in front of the rock monkey, leaping onto its shoulder with the help of a nearby tree. Although the rock monkey had the word monkey in its name, its movements weren't nimble. On the contrary, due to its enormous size, it seemed a little clumsy. It wasn't particularly intelligent, and the only reason it was called a monkey was because of its resemblance. Logically speaking, it should have been very difficult for a rock monkey to cultivate to become a high-rank beast. However, judging from its roar and strength, not only had it cultivated to become a high-rank beast, it had even reached the pinnacle of its kind. There could only be one reason for this. It had unintentionally eaten some extremely precious treasure, causing its cultivation to increase by leaps and bounds. Wang Meng stood on the rock monkey's shoulder, while Pei Zio and Yun Ruyao continued to attack it from the ground to distract it. Wang Meng took advantage of the distraction of the giant rock monkey to raise his fine steel sword and stab at its head. The group had already determined that the rock monkey's weak point was its head, and Wang Meng's sword would definitely kill it in a single blow. Flat. Just as the group expected, Wang Meng's steel sword sank into the monkey's head, causing fresh blood to spurt out. Wang Meng kicked off the monkey's shoulder with both feet, causing his body to soar into the air, avoiding the spurt of blood. He landed steadily on the ground, his posture elegant and confident. "Brother Wang, well done," Pei Zhou shouted excitedly from the ground. Over the course of the day, the four of them had reaped a bountiful harvest. They had already obtained 3 mid-rank beast cores, and now they had obtained a peak high-rank beast core. At this rate, the four of them would surely be able to secure a spot. "Miss Yun, Brother Wang is truly a dragon among men." Pei Zhou looked at Yun Ruyao. Yun Ruyao was naturally very happy to have such a large harvest. She nodded and praised, "Young Master Wang is truly impressive." "Like a good match," Pei Zhou added. Yun Ruyao could sense something strange in his tone. For some reason, Pei Zhou had been looking at her and Wang Meng with such a suggestive gaze these past few days, making Yun Ruyao very uncomfortable. Yun Ruyao wasn't an immature girl. Although she was a little confused at first or second time, she was able to discern the underlying meaning behind Pei Zhou's words. But Pei Zhou's words were very obvious and his choice of words was also very vague. Yun Ruyao couldn't find any fault with them and she couldn't say anything. Looking at Pei Zhou's suggestive gaze, Yun Ruyao felt a little depressed. How could someone like her who had nothing to do with Wang Meng have caused Pei Zhou to have such strange thoughts? It was true that people tended to think whatever they liked and no one could stop them. The four of them took out the giant rock monkey's core. It was a spherical golden beast core slightly larger than an infant's fist. It was filled with spiritual energy and it glowed with a beautiful light. The four of them stared at the beast core intently, unwilling to look away. Such a precious treasure was something that an ordinary person might not even see once in their lifetime. "Here, keep it." To everyone's surprise, Wang Meng handed such an incomparably precious treasure to Yun Ruyao. Yun Ruyao was first stunned, then overjoyed. Even if she couldn't keep such a treasure forever, having it temporarily was still a form of satisfaction. Although Yun Ruyao was a little uncomfortable with Wang Meng's attentiveness, she couldn't help but accept it. "Brother Wang, where are we going next?" This high-rank beast core was undoubtedly useful in buying Yun Ruyao's heart, and she immediately changed her address from Young Master Wang to Brother Wang. "Aren't you curious as to how such a stupid fellow could cultivate to become a high-rank beast?" Wang Meng asked. "Brother Wang, what do you mean?" Pei Zhou asked. "What I mean is that this giant rock monkey must have eaten some sort of spiritual herb or fruit that can aid its cultivation. That's why it was able to cultivate to such a level." Wang Meng revealed his guess, then continued, "And this spiritual herb and fruit are in this oasis. Perhaps they're nearby." Wang Meng's words excited the other three youths. Spiritual herbs and fruits that could boost one's cultivation were definitely something that could only be found by chance. "Then let's hurry up and look for them," all three of them exclaimed in unison. "It's already dusk. To save time, let's split up and meet back here at nightfall. What do you think?" Wang Meng suggested. "All right, I'll team up with the concubine and Brother Wang will team up with Miss Yun," Pei Zhou said. Yi Qianying was taken aback by Pei Zhou's words. Logically speaking, Pei Zhou hated her to the core, so why would he volunteer to team up with her? Could it be that he believed her claim that Yun Ruan had harmed her? Yi Qianying still held on to a sliver of hope as she accepted Pei Zhou's invitation. Naturally, Yun Ruyao had no reason to object. After all, Wang Meng was very strong and teaming up with him was exactly what Yun Ruyao wanted. The four of them split up into two groups. Pei Zhou walked in front, but he didn't say a word, completely ignoring Yi Qianying. "Brother Zhou, Yi Qianying couldn't help but speak up first. "Please call me Young Master Pei or by my name Concubine," Pei Zhou replied coldly. Yi Qianying's face turned red, and a wave of embarrassment and anger surged from her chest. "All right, Pei Zhou, if you hate me so much, why did you volunteer to team up with me?" Yi Qianying asked, suppressing her anger. Pei Zhou didn't even turn his head. "You're used to reading people's faces, so why didn't you see that Wang Meng likes Yun Ruyao this time?" "I just wanted to help her." "What?" Yi Qianying was confused. "Young Master Wang likes Sister Ruyao." Chapter 193. Why not? Paisio stopped and turned to look at Yi Qianying strangely. Because young Master Wang doesn't seem to like Sister Ruyao at all. Yi Qianying replied confidently. If you really like someone, no matter how hard you try to hide it, you'll be able to tell from their expression, tone, and even their actions. But young Master Wang doesn't seem to like Sister Ruyao at all. Just as Paisio had said, Yi Qianying was a very observant person. In the past day or so, she had carefully observed Wang Meng's every move and action. His words and actions didn't make Yi Qianying feel that he liked Yun Ruyao at all. On the contrary, the way Wang Meng looked at Yun Ruyao made Yi Qianying feel a little strange, as if he were probing and suspicious, but it wasn't obvious. Yi Qianying wasn't sure exactly what kind of feeling it was, but she was sure that it wasn't love. Paisio retorted impatiently. Brother Wang gave Yun Ruyao the high-rank beast core for safekeeping. If that's not love, then what is? Yi Qianying shook her head disapprovingly. Didn't young Master Wang give Sister Ruyao the giant rock monkey's core because he wanted to dispel her wariness? Although Yun Ruyao had teamed up with Wang Meng, she had always been wary of the two of them. After all, it wasn't impossible for them to get rid of their teammates and take the spoils for themselves. After all, they weren't familiar with Wang Meng. As a result, Yi Qianying could tell that Wang Meng's actions were only to lower Yun Ruyao's wariness. Moreover, Yi Qianying could tell that Wang Meng's actions had some effect on Yun Ruyao. Yun Ruyao had clearly lowered her wariness of Wang Meng, or she wouldn't have agreed to teaming up with him. Woman, you're quite a scheming woman. Paisio sneered. If you insist on twisting someone else's feelings, there's nothing I can do about it. Paisio glanced at Yi Qianying coolly. Brother Wang told me himself that he likes Yun Ruyao. Otherwise, he wouldn't have given up on his team to team up with two girls of low cultivation. Paisio's tone carried a hint of disdain for Yun Ruyao and Yi Qianying. As soon as Paisio said this, Yi Qianying was astonished. Wang Meng had actually said that he liked Yun Ruyao. Could it be that she was mistaken? No. A woman's intuition told Yi Qianying that she was not mistaken. If you liked someone, you would never look at them with a suspicious or tentative gaze. In that case, why would Wang Meng give up his seemingly strong team and team up with two unrelated girls? Suddenly, a thought appeared in Yi Qianying's mind that made her break out in cold sweat. Could it be that Wang Meng already knew the truth behind his brother's death? When Paisio saw that Yi Qianying had suddenly stopped in her tracks, he frowned and asked impatiently, "What's wrong now?" Yi Qianying looked up at Paisio and asked, "Did Wang Meng ask you about Wang Kuang?" Yi Qianying's sudden question left Paisio dumbfounded. "No," he answered honestly. "Don't you think that's unusual?" Yi Qianying continued. "Wang Meng is Wang Kuang's brother, and Wang Kuang died in the imperial territory. We've all participated in the imperial expedition, but Wang Meng has never asked us about Wang Kuang. Don't you think it's strange?" At first, Paisio had felt a little guilty toward Wang Meng because of Wang Kuang's death, but after seeing Yun Ruoyan's attitude toward Wang Meng, he was relieved. If Yun Ruoyan, who had personally killed Wang Kuang, could remain so calm in front of Wang Meng, what did he have to be nervous about? Furthermore, Pei Yingxiong had bribed Wang Meng in various ways over the past few days, and he had become very close to the Pei family. As a result, Paisio didn't take it to heart that Wang Meng hadn't asked him about Wang Kuang. Moreover, Paisio had heard from Wang Kuang that Wang Meng was obsessed with pill-making, and that he wasn't very close to his siblings in the family. Perhaps the two brothers didn't share a good relationship. I don't think there's anything strange about it. Paisio paused, not really taking Yi Qianying's words to heart. Besides, neither you nor I killed Wang Kuang, so there's no need for us to feel guilty. Seeing that her words hadn't caught Paisio's attention, Yi Qianying had no choice but to follow behind him with a heavy heart. According to Wang Meng, they could sense spiritual herbs with particularly high concentrations of spiritual energy. Both of them released their mental energy and carefully sensed for spiritual energy in their surroundings. On another small path, Wang Meng and Yun Ruyao were walking side by side. Yun Ruyao was also releasing her mental energy to sense her surroundings. "Miss Yun." Wang Meng suddenly turned to Yun Ruyao. Startled, Yun Ruyao also turned to look at Wang Meng. Wang Meng's long narrow eyes were looking at her with an inexplicable smile. When Yun Ruyao met Wang Meng's gaze, her heart skipped a beat. For some reason, Yun Ruyao was a little afraid of Wang Meng, especially when she accidentally met his gaze. She was so flustered that she didn't dare to meet his gaze. "Young Master Wang, what's the matter?" Yun Ruoyao asked before turning her gaze away. Yun Ruoyao's uneasiness in front of Wang Meng was a stark contrast to Yun Ruoyan's indifference, which made Wang Meng even more certain that Yun Ruoyao was feeling guilty. "Miss Yun, why do I feel like you're a little afraid of me?" Wang Meng's smile turned a little sinister, but Yun Ruoyao had already turned her eyes away and didn't see his malicious smile. How could that be? Wang Meng's straightforwardness left Yun Ruoyao at a loss. She was indeed a little afraid of him, but she couldn't explain why. Yun Ruoyao smiled awkwardly. "Young Master Wang, you sure know how to joke. Why would I be afraid of you?" Yun Ruoyao naturally knew that Wang Kuang was Wang Meng's younger brother. At the start she had indeed been a little worried that Wang Meng would ask her about Wang Kuang, and she had already prepared a response. She had even considered exposing Yun Ruoyan as Wang Kuang's murderer in order to get rid of Yun Ruoyan. However, that was only a thought and she couldn't put it into action. Once Wang Meng found out that Yun Ruoyan was Wang Kuang's murderer, Yun Ruoyan would naturally suffer from Wang Meng's vengeance. At the same time, however, the Yun family would become enemies with the Yu Kingdom's Wang family, and even the Wang family's business alliance. And if Jin Fei-er's death were to be dragged into the matter, it would be even more troublesome. After all, back in the imperial territory, she and Pei Zio had worked together to kill Jin Fei-er and her companion. As a result, she could only keep this matter to herself, unable to reveal it to anyone. Fortunately, Wang Meng had never asked them about Wang Kuang. In fact, he had never even mentioned Wang Kuang in front of them. Sometimes Yun Ruoyao even forgot that Wang Meng was Wang Kuang's brother. As a result, her fear of Wang Meng wasn't because of Wang Kuang's death, but rather because Wang Meng's aura was so strong that it suppressed Yun Ruoyao. There were some people in this world who could inexplicably frighten you, and Wang Meng was precisely that type of person to Yun Ruoyao. "Then why don't you dare look me in the eye?" Wang Meng asked again. Yun Ruoyao was even more flustered, not knowing how to respond. "Is it because you're guilty?" Wang Meng pressed her even harder. Perhaps because Wang Meng was pressing her too hard, Yun Ruoyao suddenly felt a wave of anger rise in her heart. She finally turned around and looked at Wang Meng. "Young Master Wang, what do you mean by that? What do I have to be guilty of?" Wang Meng didn't speak. Instead, he stared unblinkingly at Yun Ruoyao with his long, narrow eyes. After a long while, Wang Meng finally said slowly, "Miss Yun, please don't be angry. I was just joking." Under his stare, Yun Ruoyao's anger mysteriously dissipated, and she once again became somewhat at a loss. "Young Master Wang, it's best not to joke like this." Yun Ruoyao averted her gaze. "It's almost evening, so let's hurry up and search. We still have to meet up with young Master Pei and Qianying in a bit." Yun Ruoyao walked in front, and Wang Meng once again revealed a sinister smile behind her. When Jin Fei-er had died, she had only left Wang Meng with the words Yun Ruoyu, which meant that Wang Kuang's murderer could only be one of the three. Before entering Kongming Academy, Wang Meng had done a general investigation on the three of them, and the first person he'd ruled out was Yun Ruoyu. Yun Ruoyu's cultivation wasn't high and she wasn't a shrewd person, so it was almost impossible for her to have killed Wang Meng. According to Wang Meng's investigations, Yun Ruoyan had been called a useless daughter of the capital for a very long time. Her cultivation had only suddenly increased before entering the imperial territory, but she was still only a 4th-rank blade master, far from Wang Kuang's 6th rank. As a 5th-rank blade master, Yun Ruoyao was undoubtedly the most likely culprit. On the way back, Wang Meng tested Yun Ruoyan's reaction, but she appeared extremely calm without the slightest hint of panic. Wang Meng felt that, given Yun Ruoyan's age, she definitely wouldn't have been so calm if she had really killed Wang Kuang. As a result, although Wang Meng didn't completely rule out Yun Ruoyan, he minimized her suspicion. Over the past 2 days, Wang Meng had discovered that Yun Ruoyao's cultivation had already reached the peak of 6th rank, and she seemed to be on the verge of breaking through to 7th rank. Wang Meng couldn't help but be a little surprised by Yun Ruoyao's rapid progress, and he even began to suspect that his subordinates' investigations might have been wrong. According to Wang Meng's investigations, Yun Ruoyao had only been a 5th-rank blade master when she entered the imperial territory, but in a short month she had already reached the peak of 6th rank. Wang Meng couldn't help but suspect that his investigations might have been wrong. Perhaps by the time she entered the imperial territory, Yun Ruiyao had already been a 6th-rank blade master. If that were the case, Yun Ruiyao, as a 6th-rank blade master, might have been able to defeat Wang Kuang, who was a peak 6th-rank blade master. Moreover, Wang Meng had discovered that Yun Ruiyao was a greedy and cautious person. Although they'd been fighting alongside each other for the past day, Wang Meng could still sense that Yun Ruiyao was wary of him and that she was wary of him. There had to be a reason for this, and Wang Meng couldn't think of a second reason other than that she was Wang Kuang's murderer. At this point, Wang Meng was almost certain that Yun Ruiyao was his murderer. Chapter 194. Yun Ruoyan and Zhui Yifeng carried Zhao Ming's corpse out of the oasis, following the route that Zhao Su had pointed out on the map, all the way west toward a relatively large oasis. After walking for about an hour, the sky began to darken. As they walked, Yun Ruoyan suddenly sensed the presence of 2 humans in front of her, and she stopped in her tracks. Zhui Yifeng also stopped. Clearly, he had also sensed the presence of these 2 auras. Perhaps they're sentries, Zhui Yifeng speculated. When Yun Ruoyan turned around, she couldn't help but look behind Zhui Yifeng. Behind him was a simple wooden stretcher, upon which Zhao Ming's corpse was strapped. The weather here was extremely hot, but at night the temperature plummeted and there was very little moisture in the air. In this strange climate, not only did Zhao Ming's corpse not stink, it even seemed to be drying up. Yun Ruoyan didn't doubt that Zhao Ming's originally muscular body would turn into a dried husk in a few days if he was left exposed to the elements. I'm sure they've been waiting for us for quite some time. Yun Ruoyan turned her gaze from Zhui Yifeng's back to the front. Both Yun Ruoyan and Zhui Yifeng's cultivation wasn't low, but they had the advantage in numbers, and the Lin sisters were still being held hostage. As a result, they didn't intend to face them head-on. The 2 of them concealed their auras and crept toward the source of the auras. Damn it, we've been waiting for an entire day. Why isn't anyone here yet? A youth dressed in brown robes peered into the distance impatiently. Because of the hot weather, his sleeves and trousers were all rolled up. We have the advantage in numbers. That Yun Ruoyan must have abandoned her sisters in fear. The other, slightly plump youth took off his outer shirt, revealing his chubby white arms. Yun Ruoyan recognized both of them as the spoiled brats of Rong Yueshan's group. If that's the case, we'll have a huge advantage, haha. The youth in brown robes cackled. What kind of benefits can we get? The shirtless youth asked doubtfully. Heh. The youth in brown robes cackled again. Brother Li said that after this matter is over, we can deal with the 2 young ladies of the Lin family. Those 2 girls from the Lin family have always had their eyes on the top of their heads. They have never placed us, the disciples of the imperial city, in their eyes. This time we must let them know how powerful the men in the imperial city are. When the time comes, us 2 brothers will each have a taste of something new. After we're done, we'll give it to someone else, The youth's face was so lustful that Yun Ruoyan couldn't help but want to stab him to death on the spot. The brother Li that the youth was referring to was the handsome youth in white who always followed behind Rong Yueshan. In Yun Ruoyan's heart, he had already been sentenced to death. A sharp killing intent flashed through Yun Ruoyan's eyes. She pointed at the black-robed youth, then made a throat-slitting gesture at Zhui Yifeng. Before Zhui Yifeng could react, Yun Ruoyan had dashed out of her hiding place. Yun Ruoyan's body was very agile, and she had infused spiritual energy into her legs. Every step she took seemed to glide through the air, and in 2 steps she appeared in front of the 2 youths. The 2 youths were still chatting and laughing without noticing anything. Suddenly they felt a powerful aura strangely appear in front of them. Both of them subconsciously turned to look at Yun Ruoyan, and before they could change their smiles, their eyes widened in shock. That exaggerated smile, coupled with a pair of shocked eyes, made for a rather strange expression. Yun Ruoyan's lips curled up in a cold smile. Just as the 2 youths were about to cry out in shock, the dark steel dagger in her hand drew an arc in the air and slashed across the black-robed youth's neck. Blood sprayed out from his throat like a mist, splashing all over the head, face and body of the bare-chested youth. The black-robed youth's eyes were wide open and his mouth was still open. His body collapsed on the yellow sand behind him, as if he hadn't even realized what had happened. Because the birthmark on her face was gone, Yun Ruoyan had found some herbs in the forest, ground them into a paste and made a fake birthmark on the right side of her face. At the moment, half of Yun Ruoyan's face was beautiful, while the other half was covered by a black substance. The half-naked youth looked at Yun Ruoyan as if he had seen a ghost. Yun Ruoyan stared at him coldly, then took a step forward. The youth was so frightened that his legs gave way and he fell to the ground. "Lead the way or we'll kill you right now," Yun Ruoyan said coldly. The chubby youth was so frightened that he couldn't even speak. All he could do was nod his head repeatedly. Yun Ruoyan and Zhou Yifeng followed the chubby youth into the oasis. By a small lake in the middle of the oasis, Lin Qingchen and Lin Qingxia were tied to 2 trees. Their mouths were bound with strips of cloth, and their hands and feet were tied up tightly. Their hair was disheveled and there were some small injuries on their faces and bodies. Although they didn't look serious, they were still quite pitiful. Yun Ruoyan didn't need to ask to guess that the 2 of them must have tried to escape, only to be caught and punished. Yun Ruoyan's heart ached for her 2 sisters, and seeing them injured made her heart ache as well. She wanted nothing more than to rush in front of them and save them. Damn it, these bastards even beat women. Zhou Yifeng was also infuriated and he quickened his pace. Wait a moment. Yun Ruoyan suddenly lowered her voice and stopped in her tracks. Yun Ruoyan's dagger was pressed against the youth's neck and when she stopped, so did he. Why are there only 2 guards? Where are the others? Yun Ruoyan asked. At this moment, there were only 2 youths guarding Lin Qingchen and Lin Qingxia. The others were nowhere to be seen. The others have all gone to kill beasts nearby, leaving only the 4 of us behind. 2 of us are guarding the oasis, and the other 2 are watching the 2 misses of the Lin family, the youth replied, his voice trembling. They'd agreed to exchange hostages today, but only 4 of them had been left behind. Wasn't there something fishy going on? What's going on? Don't try anything funny, or you'll end up like that guy just now. Yun Ruoyan threatened. I'm really not lying. We waited for so long but you didn't show up. Tomorrow's the last day and everyone was so anxious that we decided to go kill beasts first. It's already dark and they should be back soon. The youth was on the verge of tears under Yun Ruoyan's threat, and he didn't look like he was lying. I still feel like something's amiss, Zhou Yifeng said as he got closer to Yun Ruoyan. There's definitely an ambush nearby. If someone had concealed their aura and set up an ambush nearby, Yun Ruoyan and Zhou Yifeng's cultivation wouldn't have been able to detect them. Yun Ruoyan nodded. Even if there's an ambush, we have to go save them. I'll head out now and you stay here to cover me. Zhou Yifeng nodded in agreement. He took out his homemade wooden bow, knocked his sword and prepared to act as a cover. Yun Ruoyan used her hand as a knife to knock out the youth, then concealed her aura and crept toward the lakeside. 2 beauties, don't be in such a hurry. If your sister doesn't show up after tonight, we'll definitely put you down and take good care of you, hee. A well-built youth stood in front of Lin Qingchen, his eyes full of lust. That's right, don't be in such a hurry. Men like girls with a fiery temper, another youth chimed in. Whoosh whoosh. As 2 strange, crisp sounds rang out, the laughter stopped and the 2 youths felt a chill on their necks. They subconsciously turned around to look at Yun Ruoyan, whose face was half white and half black. Their mouths gaped open but they could only make squeaking sounds. Yun Ruoyan ignored the 2 youths and walked straight toward Lin Qingchen and Lin Qingxia, who were tied to a tree trunk. The 2 youths' bodies collapsed behind Yun Ruoyan. Ooh. As Yun Ruoyan walked closer, Lin Qingxia and Lin Qingchen began to whimper anxiously. They wanted to say something but their mouths were tightly bound and they couldn't utter a single word. They were so anxious that tears began to flow down their cheeks. Yun Ruoyan quickly walked up to the 2 of them and cut off the ropes binding them with her dagger. After being tied up for so long, their bodies were sore and weak and they collapsed to the ground. Qingchen, Qingxia, are you all right? Yun Ruoyan asked worriedly as she untied the cloth around their mouths. Lin Qingxia's mouth was the first to be untied. Chapter 195. The Qin Kingdom youth looked at Yun Ruoyan and smiled. Didn't your 2 sisters have time to tell you that they've been smeared with a colorless, odorless powder? You've been poisoned. Yun Ruoyan's heart skipped a beat. She tried to circulate her spiritual energy, but a numbing sensation spread through her entire body, and she couldn't help but stumble. Sister Ruoyan. Lin Qingqian and Lin Qingxue tried their best to help Yun Ruoyan up, but all three of them stumbled and almost fell to the ground. The chubby youth and Rong Yueshan both burst out laughing at this scene. Miss Rong, your bone-softening powder is truly amazing, huh? The chubby youth laughed at Rong Yueshan. Rong Yueshan also couldn't hide the smile on her face. She said, of course this bone-softening powder was specially made by my father. It's 10 times more effective than ordinary bone-softening powder. It's specially used to deal with people with high spiritual power cultivation. Truly despicable and shameless. Yun Ruoyan glanced coldly at the two smug youths before turning to the chubby youth. I didn't expect the Qin kingdom to resort to such underhanded methods. The chubby youth's face reddened slightly under Yun Ruoyan's cold gaze. The Qin kingdom was by the sea, and the Qin kingdom had always been known for their frankness. Even if they were cruel and bloodthirsty, they would do so face to face. It was rare for them to resort to poison like this. Humph. Rong Yueshan snorted. First you killed my sister and now you've killed Zhao Ming. What's wrong with us killing you for revenge? What does it matter what methods we use? That's right. As long as I can kill you and avenge my brother, I don't mind being despicable for once, the chubby youth replied, mirroring Rong Yueshan's tone. Clearly, this chubby youth had been brainwashed by Rong Yueshan. Rong Yueshan looked at the chubby youth. She's so weak right now that she doesn't even have the strength to truss a chicken. Are you going to do it or should I? I'll do it. The chubby youth stepped forward. I must avenge my brother with my own hands. All right. Rong Yueshan put her hands behind her back and did not object. She said, you can kill her for revenge, but her head is mine. I promised my father that I would bring her head back to pay homage to my sister who died tragically in her hands. No problem. The two of them quickly came to an agreement. One would kill Yun Ruoyan personally and the other would take her head. The strong and fat youth had a bloodthirsty look on his face as he approached the three of them like a small mountain. Sister Ruoyan, run. Lin Qingxue tugged at Yun Ruoyan's sleeve. We'll stop him. Both Lin Qingxue and Lin Qingqian took a step forward, swaying unsteadily. Lin Qingxue and Lin Qingqian and Lin Yun Ruoyan, but Yun Ruoyan too. Yun Yun I's Qing I Yun, Yun Yun and Yun I Ruo don't, Yun for Yun tu, I said, I Ruo I Yun and tu. Today I'm going to kill both of your sisters in front of you so that you'll have a taste of the pain of losing your brothers and sisters. I didn't kill your brother and I don't want to kill you either. If you let us go now, I'll let bygones be bygones. Yun Ruoyan stepped back, blocking the Lin sisters' path. I didn't kill your brother and I don't want to kill you either. What are you saying? Let bygones be bygones? You don't want to kill me? Huh. The chubby youth seemed to have heard a hilarious joke. Get it straight, I'm the one who's going to kill you now. Yun Ruoyan's trio had already retreated to the edge of the forest, and there was nowhere else for them to retreat. The chubby youth stared at the three of them like a wild beast, as if he would pounce on them at any moment. In the forest opposite them, Zhou Yifeng had already knocked a tiger canine arrowhead on a wooden arrow. As the chubby youth approached Yun Ruoyan's trio, he also walked into Zhou Yifeng's shooting range. Just as the youth was about to expose his back to Zhou Yifeng slowly pulled the bowstring to its fullest. Just as Zhou Yifeng was about to release the arrow, Yun Ruoyan shook her head in his direction. Zhou Yifeng frowned slightly. Although he didn't know why Yun Ruoyan would shake her head at him, the tacit understanding between the two of them still allowed Zhou Yifeng to relax his grip on the bowstring. No matter what, no matter the circumstances, Zhou Yifeng chose to trust Yun Ruoyan. Qiuqiu, Yun Ruoyan called out to Qiuqiu in her mind. Mistress, Qiuqiu quickly responded. Prepare the mist. Right. Qiuqiu took out the bottle of mist from within the pocket dimension of the silver bracelet and opened it. The green mist immediately began to pour out. The youth stopped in front of the three of them. His gaze landed on Lin Qingxue, who was standing to Yun Ruoyan's right. Let's start with you. Without giving the three of them any time to react, the youth stretched out a muscular arm and grabbed at Lin Qingxue. Yun Ruoyan, on the other hand, was already prepared. With a flip of her hand, she grabbed a handful of green mist from her pocket dimension and threw it at the youth's face. As soon as the mist left her hand, it immediately turned into a colorless and odorless gas. The youth saw Yun Ruoyan's attack, but he couldn't dodge in time. That colorless and odorless mist drilled into his nose without a single bit of it going to waste. Thinking that he had been poisoned, he hurriedly retreated and tried to use his spiritual energy to expel the poison. However, he quickly discovered that he wasn't poisoned at all. In fact, he didn't feel any discomfort at all. The chubby youth looked at Yun Ruoyan suspiciously and his eyes widened in shock. The Yun Ruoyan in front of him was no longer Yun Ruoyan but Zhao Ming. Brother Zhao. The chubby youth called out to Yun Ruoyan with a mixture of surprise, joy and confusion. Both Lin Xianxia and Lin Xianxia looked at the chubby youth's strange behavior, unsure of what was going on. Yun Ruoyan didn't have the time to explain. Instead, she turned to the chubby youth sternly. Do you still recognize me as your brother? Of course I do. You'll always be my older brother. The chubby youth replied without hesitation. Then will you listen to what I say? Yun Ruoyan continued to speak to the chubby youth as if she were his older brother. I'll listen. The chubby youth's eyes were red. I don't have parents and I only have you as my older brother. As long as you're alive, as long as you're back, I'll listen to everything you say. Good. Yun Ruoyan praised him. I didn't dote on you for nothing. Take out the antidote now and give it to the Lin sisters. The antidote isn't with me, the chubby youth replied. It's with Miss Rong. I'll go get it from her. The chubby youth turned to look for Rong Yuehong, but Yun Ruoyan stopped him. Brother, wait. What's the matter, brother? Come here. Yun Ruoyan beckoned to the chubby youth, who walked up to her obediently. The chubby youth was still under the effects of the fog, and in his eyes Yun Ruoyan was Zhao Ming. Let me tell you that Rong Yueshan is a vicious character. She wanted to kill you and frame Yun Ruoyan for it. Luckily, you saw through her ploy and you didn't die at her hands, Yun Ruoyan whispered. She's using you to kill the Lin sisters and Yun Ruoyan. If you ask for the antidote just like that, she'll definitely refuse. Damn it. What a cunning and insidious woman. The chubby youth didn't doubt Zhao Ming's words at all. She sacrificed 4 of her brothers to set up this trap, and she even wanted me to sacrifice 2 of my brothers. I didn't do that, and the ones who've died are all members of her team. Good job. As expected of my younger brother. Yun Ruoyan's opinion of the chubby youth had changed somewhat. Walk over and kill Rong Yueshan, then get the antidote for us. Yes, I understand. The chubby youth nodded. I'm going now, brother. All right, go. The chubby youth turned and walked back toward Rong Yueshan. Rong Yueshan frowned at the chubby youth. Why didn't you kill her? What did Yun Ruoyan say to you? The chubby youth's back was to Rong Yueshan, and the two of them spoke in hushed voices. Although Rong Yueshan wasn't very far from them, she couldn't hear what they were saying. She only felt that the two of them were acting rather strangely. What did you say? The chubby youth didn't seem to understand Rong Yueshan's words, and he continued to walk toward her. Rong Yueshan was even more perplexed. What did you say to Yun Ruoyan? Oh, I'm talking to her. The chubby young man laughed and walked up to Rong Yueshan. I'll talk to her. The young man said as he suddenly grabbed at Rong Yueshan's neck like the wind. With the strength of the youth's hand, even a wolf's throat would be crushed by him. Rong Yueshan only felt a strong gust of wind sweeping towards her neck. It was so fast that she didn't even have time to retreat. Ah! A pained cry rang out. Lin Qingxian, Lin Qingxue, Zhu Yifeng, and even Yun Ruoyan all opened their eyes wide in shock. This cry of pain didn't come from Rong Yueshan's mouth, but from the chubby youth's. The chubby youth's hand had just landed on Rong Yueshan's neck, but before he could exert any force, a dagger had pierced through his chest. The youth's cultivation wasn't weak, but he hadn't been on guard against Rong Yueshan at all. Just like that, Rong Yueshan's dagger pierced through his chest. To survive in this world, not only do you have a high cultivation, you also have to have a brain. Rong Yuehong smiled faintly at the chubby youth before slowly pulling the dagger out of his chest. The youth turned back to Yun Ruoyan, and the Zhao Ming in his eyes slowly reverted to Yun Ruoyan's. Brother, are you dead or alive? The youth had the time to ask this question before he fell to the ground. Hey, go ask them in the netherworld. Rong Yuehong sneered, then turned her gaze back to Yun Ruoyan. Yi Qianying told me that you knew sorcery. I didn't believe her at first, but now that I've seen it with my own eyes, I have no choice but to believe it. Chapter 196. As the sky darkened, Yun Ruyao and Wang Meng continued walking along the small path. Wang Meng walked unhurriedly, always a step behind Yun Ruyao. This made Yun Ruyao feel very uneasy. At first the two of them were still talking, but as time went on, not a single word was said. It's already dark. Let's go back, Yun Ruyao said. All right. Let's go back. Wang Meng didn't have any objections. He was almost certain that Yun Ruyao was Wang Kuang's murderer, but he didn't want to kill her just like that. He felt that it would be too easy on her. When he thought of how his brother had died in the Imperial Palace's secret manuals, his hatred for Yun Ruyao wouldn't be quelled no matter how cruel the world's punishment was. Why aren't you walking? Yun Ruyao turned around and was about to walk back the way they had come, but she saw Wang Meng standing there, staring at her strangely. You go first, Wang Meng said. Your cultivation isn't high enough, and it'll be too dangerous if a magical beast attacks you from behind. Wang Meng's words weren't wrong at all, and Yun Ruyao relaxed quite a bit. Wang Meng's cultivation was more than a single rank higher than hers, and if he wanted to attack her he wouldn't even have to resort to a sneak attack. In a direct confrontation, Yun Ruyao wouldn't be able to withstand 3 of Wang Meng's attacks. Yun Ruyao relaxed a little and she led the way. Wang Meng still followed behind her, his mind filled with thoughts of how to punish Yun Ruyao. There was also Yi Qianying and Yun Ruoyu. The results of his investigation showed that Yi Qianying, Yun Ruoyu and Yun Ruyao were very close, and the 3 of them had always been inseparable. They had even been together in the imperial territory. Even if the 2 of them weren't the murderers, they had to be bystanders or participants. In Yun Ruoyu's absence he would punish Yi Qianying first, and then deal with Yun Ruoyu once they returned to the capital. Pei Zio was definitely going to die, and Jin Fei had already decided on how he would die. Just like that skinny monkey Guiyu, he would be sliced and salted. At this moment Wang Meng was like a demon who had everything under his control. These 3 people were like meat on a chopping board in his hands, waiting to see how he would deal with them. Wang Meng suddenly realized that controlling someone else's life and death was a particularly interesting thing. This was the first time he had discovered something more interesting than refining medicine, and his mood unexpectedly became inexplicably happy. There seems to be spiritual power fluctuations. Not long after they walked out, Yun Ruyao suddenly stopped and pointed to a very dark place in the forest to her left. Wang Meng froze for a moment, then pulled himself out of his thoughts and looked in the direction Yun Ruyao was pointing. There was not a trace of light in that place, it was very deep. Wang Meng released his spiritual force towards that place, and sure enough, there was a very rich spiritual force overflowing from that place. Wang Meng's heart skipped a beat, and then a wave of ecstasy surged from his chest. What spiritual fruits and spiritual herbs? They were just lies that he had made up in order not to alert the enemy and trick Yun Ruyao into coming out alone. As a result, Wang Meng didn't waste any spiritual energy on scouting along the way. But at this moment, there was indeed an unusually rich spiritual energy fluctuation coming from that dark and gloomy forest. Based on Wang Meng's many years of pill refining experience, such a strong spiritual energy fluctuation had to be coming from an extraordinary treasure. As someone who was obsessed with pill refining, nothing could make Wang Meng more excited than finding a treasure that could be used to refine pills. In that instant, Wang Meng had completely forgotten about avenging his brother Wang Kuang, and all his attention was focused on the treasure that had yet to appear. Young Master Wang. When Yun Ruyao saw Wang Meng's bright eyes and uncontrollable joy, she guessed that he must have found something good. She couldn't help but get excited as well. Young Master Wang, was that spiritual energy emanating from the spirit grass and fruit? Yun Ruyao asked. Wang Meng finally turned his gaze from the depths of the forest to Yun Ruyao. He looked at her with bright eyes, but he didn't speak for a long time, as if he were too excited to speak, or as if he were racking his brains over something. Wang Meng's expression once again caused Yun Ruyao to feel a little apprehensive. Young Master Wang, what's wrong? Nothing, I'm just too excited, Wang Meng replied. There's indeed a treasure there, and it's no ordinary one at that. Really? Yun Ruyao grew excited once more. A treasure that can excite even you must be extraordinary. The spiritual energy fluctuation coming from that place is something I've never seen on any spiritual herb or fruit before. In fact, It's tens of times stronger than any high-grade spiritual herb I've seen before. If I'm not wrong, it's probably a sage-rank spiritual fruit or herb. Wang Meng didn't hide anything. In his eyes, Yun Ruiyao was already a dead person, and there was nothing to hide from a dead person. Saint Reich. Yun Ruiyao was dumbfounded by Wang Meng's words. Whether it was a spiritual herb, a spiritual fruit, or a magical beast, they were all existences that only existed in the legends. Legend had it that all sage-rank existences had been wiped out along with the demon race 1,000 years ago. How could there be a sage-rank existence in Kongming Academy's training grounds? But such a spiritual herb and fruit would surely be guarded by ferocious magical beasts. It wouldn't be so easy to obtain, Wang Meng added. Then what should we do? Yun Ruiyao didn't know much about spiritual herbs, and she had no idea what to do after hearing Wang Meng's words. Why don't we ask Qianying and young Master Pei for help? Wang Meng shook his head. It's not that I'm being selfish, but there's no way a sage-rank spiritual herb or fruit like this could be found in large quantities. There'd only be one spiritual herb and 2 spiritual fruits would be considered lucky. Are you really willing to share it with 2 other people? After all, such an opportunity is hard to come by in several lifetimes. Yun Ruiyao shook her head without hesitation. Of course she wasn't willing. All right. Wang Meng nodded in satisfaction. Let's go take a look at the situation first. If the beast is too strong for us to handle, we'll find someone else to help. Wang Meng actually took Yun Ruiyao's hand and pulled her into the depths of the forest. Yun Ruiyao was taken aback. She had never held hands with a boy before. Not even young Master Li, who was currently quite close to her, had skin-to-skin contact with her. Yun Ruiyao felt a strange sensation pass from Wang Meng's hand to her own. She couldn't help but blush as she allowed Wang Meng to pull her into the forest. Wang Meng happened to see this scene and he couldn't help but narrow his eyes. His lips suddenly curled into a cruel smile that was even more chilling than his icy one. In another oasis, Rong Yueshan was still facing off against Yun Ruiyao's group of 3. Yun Ruiyao, are you a human or a demon? Rong Yueshan asked. What do you think? Yun Ruiyao countered expressionlessly. Do I look like a human or a demon? Yun Ruiyao's face was half white and half black. As the sky darkened, her white face became even whiter, while her black face seemed to be obscured by the darkness. She looked rather strange and ugly, but it would be too far-fetched to call her a demon. You don't look like a demon, but you don't look like a human either, Rong Yueshan replied. Rong Yueshan said, what kind of person was my elder sister? She was actually defeated by you. Not only was she defeated, she even died at your hands. Although Rong Yueshan and Rong Yuehong weren't sisters, she had always treated her sister as her goal. Rong Yueshan had been present at the Peach Blossom Banquet, and she had personally witnessed Yun Ruiyao defeat Rong Yuehong with her own spiritual energy. However, judging from her aura, Yun Ruiyao's cultivation was roughly the same as hers, and this had puzzled her for a long time. From then on, Rong Yueshan began to doubt the rumors that Yun Ruiyao was a cripple. She believed that Yun Ruiyao was hiding her true strength. After getting to know Yi Qianying, she began to ask her about Yun Ruiyao. According to Yi Qianying, Yun Ruiyao was almost a demon. She had suddenly transformed from an ugly shrimp into a proud swan, and her cultivation had inexplicably increased by leaps and bounds. What was even more frightening was the way Yun Ruiyao looked at others. Yun Ruiyao had gone from someone who didn't dare to meet anyone's eyes to someone who was in a superior position. For some reason, her gaze seemed to be able to see through a person's heart. Yi Qianying had even told Yun Ruiyao that Pei Zio's massacre at the Yichuan brothel had been orchestrated by Yun Ruiyao, and that Pei Zio had been bewitched by her sorcery. Rong Yueshan hadn't believed this at first. After all, she had seen a demon with her own eyes, and Yun Ruiyao definitely didn't seem like one. But just now, that fat youth had been bewitched right in front of Rong Yueshan. If Rong Yueshan hadn't seen it with her own eyes, and if she hadn't been mentally prepared, she would have been dead by now. Furthermore, when Rong Yueshan had seen Yun Ruiyao's protective barrier at the bottom of the lake, she had seen that it was something only a peak 8th rank cultivator could do. During the flower viewing party, Yun Ruiyao had given off the aura of a 4th rank blade master, but Rong Yuehong had been a 6th rank blade master at the time, and Yun Ruiyao had been able to defeat her. And now, just a few short months later, Yun Ruiyao had revealed herself to be an 8th-rank blade master. All of this confused and shocked Rong Yueshan. Before she had an answer to these questions, Rong Yueshan hadn't dared to make a move on Yun Ruiyao, but she had found an opportunity yesterday. Without hesitation, she decided to make use of this group of Qin Kingdom cultivators. She wanted to use them to capture Yun Ruiyao, then figure out just what kind of existence she was. Your sister died because she was too arrogant, Yun Ruiyao replied. As for you, Yun Ruiyao's expressionless face finally revealed a mysterious smile. You're about to die because you thought you were smart. Chapter 197. At the highest point of Kongming Academy's tower, 2 figures, one dressed in black and the other in white, stared silently at a copper mirror in front of them. Both of them wore hoods that concealed their faces. The copper mirror showed the scene of Yun Ruiyan and Rong Yueshan facing off against each other. Who do you think will win this battle? The white-robed man's hoarse, desolate voice came from the white-robed man. The black-robed man didn't speak, only pointing at Yun Ruiyan in the mirror. The white-robed man was a little surprised. This student named Yun Ruiyan doesn't seem to have the upper hand. Why do you say that? Yun Ruiyan was afflicted with a bone-softening poison, and she was accompanied by 2 similarly afflicted sisters. Even if Zhou Yifeng was hidden in the forest, she still wouldn't have the upper hand. Under the wide hood, the black-robed man's lips curled into a smile. He softly said, "Just watch. The sky's going to be completely dark soon, and the all-seeing mirror will automatically close at night. I'm afraid we won't be able to see the end of the show." The white-robed man stroked his snow-white beard beneath his hood. The 2 figures, one white and one black, didn't speak any further, both turning their gazes to the copper mirror. "Your sister died of arrogance," Yun Ruiyan said with a mysterious smile. "And you're about to die of your own cleverness." "What do you mean by that?" Rong Yueshan asked. Rong Yueshan was still quite nervous about Yun Ruiyan's words. The more she didn't know, the more afraid she was. To Rong Yueshan, Yun Ruiyan was an unknown existence. Yun Ruiyan continued to smile. "What I mean is that you're too smart for your own good, so smart that I don't have a reason not to kill you." Yun Ruiyan was a decisive person, and once she had the intention to kill, she wouldn't show any mercy. However, this didn't mean that she was a bloodthirsty person. If someone hadn't crossed her bottom line, she wouldn't have killed them so easily. Yun Ruiyan didn't want to reveal her true appearance, and she didn't even want to reveal her true strength unless she had no other choice. She was so careful not to draw attention to herself, but someone just had to focus all of her attention on her. Moreover, this person had been plotting to kill her. Such a person was undoubtedly the most dangerous existence to Yun Ruiyan, like a ticking time bomb that could explode at any moment. Therefore, she already had the intention to kill Rong Yueshan. Yun Ruiyan's murderous intent, as well as the confidence in her tone, made Rong Yueshan feel nervous. From Rong Yueshan's understanding of Yun Ruiyan, she would always be able to turn the tide of battle at the most crucial moment. He had to be as careful as possible. Despite her nervousness, Rong Yueshan's expression remained calm, and she even expressed her disdain for Yun Ruiyan. "You make it sound like you're confident that you can kill me." Rong Yueshan smiled disdainfully as she shifted her gaze toward the forest where Zhou Yifeng was hiding. "Do you think I don't know that your friend is hiding there, ready to ambush me from behind? You're underestimating me too much." Rong Yueshan could have attacked Yun Ruiyan together with the chubby youth, but she had chosen to stand far away from Zhou Yifeng. She had done so because she knew that Zhou Yifeng was hiding in the forest. Because the chubby youth had confiscated Zhou Yifeng's bow, he wasn't afraid of Zhou Yifeng at all. However, Rong Yueshan had seen Zhou Yifeng's archery in action. A person with such skill could easily make a bow and arrow that could be used as a killing weapon. Zhou Yifeng's arrow was indeed aimed at Rong Yueshan, but Rong Yueshan was already beyond the range of his homemade bow, so Zhou Yifeng had been waiting for an opportunity. Rong Yueshan, however, stood there steadily, not taking a single step forward. This made Zhou Yifeng, who had always been calm and steady, a little anxious. "It's about time. My people will be back soon." Rong Yueshan's tone finally relaxed a little. "No matter how powerful your sorcery is, you can't possibly deal with so many people at once, can you?" Rong Yueshan had said so much in order to stall for time. Her team and the rest of the Qin Kingdom team had all gone off to hunt beasts, leaving only the chubby youth Rong Yueshan and 4 other members of her team to deal with Yun Ruoyan. Then I'll kill you before they return. Once Yun Ruoyan's killing intent was ignited, she didn't want to delay any longer. She was prepared to use the Feilai blade to kill Rong Yueshan immediately. She used her mental energy to communicate with the Feilai blade in her mind, then looked at Rong Yuehong with a sharp gaze. The Feilai blade turned into a streak of light as it shot toward Rong Yueshan. Rong Yueshan had been staring intently at Yun Ruoyan the entire time, so she saw everything that had happened in the blink of an eye. Ah! Sorcery! Rong Yueshan exclaimed in shock. The sight of Yun Ruoyan using the Feilai blade was also witnessed by the white-robed elder and the black-robed man. The black-robed man narrowed his eyes but didn't react much. On the other hand, the white-robed elder exclaimed in shock. A supreme-grade spiritual weapon. As the white-robed elder exclaimed, he raised his right hand and grabbed at the copper mirror. A powerful surge of spiritual energy flowed from his palm into the copper mirror. In the blink of an eye, the Feilai blade had appeared in front of Rong Yueshan. In the next instant, it would slice through her neck and decapitate her. But at that moment, a powerful surge of spiritual energy appeared in midair. This spiritual energy morphed into a rope that bound the Feilai blade, causing it to stop right in front of Rong Yueshan's eyes. Because of the sudden binding of spiritual energy, the rope on the Feilai blade dissipated, revealing its original form. It was a weapon that was 3/4 moon-shaped, completely black, and had a rather strange shape. The edge of the blade glowed with a cold, white light, and it radiated a chilly aura. Ah! Rong Yueshan was so scared that her face turned pale. She screamed and fell to the ground. A demonic spiritual weapon. Rong Yueshan's eyes widened, and her heart almost leapt to her throat. But she finally saw that the object that had scared her out of her wits wasn't some sorcery, but a spiritual weapon. So it's a spiritual weapon. Huh. Rong Yueshan turned her gaze from the Feilai blade to Yun Ruoyan. Her voice trembled from the shock she had just received, but she couldn't suppress her joy at seeing the truth. So it's just a powerful spiritual weapon. I really thought you had 3 heads and 6 arms. Although spiritual weapons that could transform into streaks of light weren't common, they weren't unheard of. The Rong family's secret weapon, a silver needle, was able to track and kill someone from a distance. Rong Yueshan had seen such a weapon before, so she wasn't surprised. Unfortunately, that high-grade spiritual weapon had been confiscated by Li Mo during the flower viewing party. Otherwise, if it were in Rong Yueshan's hands right now, she would have shot it at Yun Ruoyan without hesitation. Yun Ruoyan was also surprised to see the Feilai blade suddenly stop just as it was about to kill Rong Yueshan. When she took a closer look, she saw that there was actually a white spiritual weapon wrapped around the blade. It was this white spiritual energy that was binding the Feilai blade, preventing it from attacking. Mistress, someone's using spiritual energy to try and control the Feilai blade. Qiuqiu's shocked voice rang out in her mind. Can you sense who it is? Yun Ruoyan asked Qiuqiu telepathically. No, Qiuqiu replied. Qiuqiu replied, this person isn't in the imperial territory. He's probably using some sort of spiritual weapon to send his spiritual energy in, but his cultivation is very high. Qiuqiu's tone was full of shock. To be able to use spiritual energy to control the Feilai blade's attack, this person's cultivation has to be at the peak of the Blade Master realm, perhaps even on the verge of breaking through to the Sage realm. Peak. Same realm. Yun Ruoyan was also shocked to hear Qiuqiu mention these 2 unfamiliar realms. On the Qinyuan continent, 9th rank was the highest realm of cultivation. Yun Ruoyan had only heard of this so-called peak from Li Mo once, and he hadn't explained it to her in detail, only telling her that she would naturally understand once she became a 9th rank Blade Master. Yun Ruoyan had asked Qiuqiu about this before, but because of the restriction, Qiuqiu hadn't been able to tell her too much. But now Yun Ruoyan had learned from Qiuqiu that, in addition to the peak of 9th rank, there was also the Sage realm. Before this, Yun Ruoyan had always thought that only magical beasts and spiritual herbs could reach the Sage realm. She hadn't expected that humans could also reach the Sage realm through cultivation. Saint realm. Wasn't that the equivalent of a god above the 9 heavens? Just as Yun Ruoyan's soul was about to leave her body, An illusory figure appeared on the Feili blade. The blade's spirit, which hadn't appeared in a long time. The blade's spirit was in the form of a long-bearded old man. His sharp eyes stared in the direction of the spiritual energy binding the blade. In front of the copper mirror, the white-robed elder made a claw-like gesture with his right hand. His powerful spiritual energy transformed into a rope of spiritual energy that glowed with a faint white light. It passed through the copper mirror and wrapped around the Feili blade. He had originally intended to take the blade away, but even after using more than half of his spiritual energy, he was still unable to retrieve it from the realm connected to the copper mirror. Just as the elder was about to raise his cultivation further, the Feili blade's spirit appeared. "Who dares disturb this old man's rest?" the blade's spirit shouted. This shout suddenly rang out, causing Zhou Xian, who had already stood up on the sand, to fall on her but once again. Chapter 198. What a powerful sword spirit, to have reached the level of a sword saint as well. The white-robed elder looked at the sword spirit sitting cross-legged on the Feili blade through the all-seeing mirror. No wonder the spirit-searching mirror couldn't detect it. When Yun Ruoyan and the others had passed through the entrance to the trial, the small mirror in Shui Yun's and Mo Yun's hands that had been used to scan their spiritual artifacts was a spirit-searching mirror. At the Spirit Seeker realm, one could detect spiritual artifacts below 9th rank. The Feili blade sword spirit had already surpassed 9th rank, and had reached the level of a sword saint. How could such a powerful spiritual weapon have appeared in the hands of a little girl? The white-robed elder couldn't help but wonder. The black-robed man standing by the white-robed elder's side also had a trace of doubt on his face. His long brows furrowed as his gaze landed on Yunruan's face reflected in the copper mirror. I really don't know how many more surprises you can bring me." The black-robed man was none other than the slaughtering king Liemo. As for the white-robed elder, he was the first elder of Kongming Academy, and he held absolute authority within the academy. "What, you don't dare tell me your name?" the Feili blade sword spirit declared arrogantly to the white-robed elder. "In that case, I won't stand on ceremony." The sword spirit raised his arms, his palms facing the sky, and a white ball of spiritual energy began to form in his palms. The white ball of spiritual energy grew larger and larger, until it was the size of a human head. Then the sword spirit brought his palms together, and the two balls of spiritual energy merged into one. The immense spiritual energy caused the sword spirit's body to look like a tiger, and as he pushed his palms forward, the ball of spiritual energy shot into the sky. "Amazing!" Qiuqiu couldn't help but exclaim. "A sword spirit actually dares to challenge a sword saint?" Qiuqiu felt as if she had truly underestimated the sword spirit. Even Yun Ruoyan was stunned by the sword spirit's sudden appearance and attack. She couldn't help but think back to when she had subdued the sword spirit. Her impression of the sword spirit was that of an eccentric old man. Eccentric people were generally quite powerful, but Yun Ruoyan hadn't expected this old man to be so terrifying. A white pillar of spiritual power shot out from the old man's hand and shot straight into the air. It was many times stronger than the rope-like spiritual power that the white-robed old man had shot out. The white-robed old man in front of the all-seeing lens couldn't help but change his expression. Such a powerful pillar of spiritual energy was rushing towards him with the momentum of breaking through the all-seeing lens. Although the white-robed elder could turn off the all-seeing mirror at any time and cut off his connection to the trial grounds, his dignity as a superior wouldn't allow him to do so. He reached out with both hands ready to receive the attack. The terrifying beam of spiritual power released by the sword spirit finally hit the barrier between the all-seeing mirror and the secret realm. Zhou Xian, who was closest to it, was blinded by the intense white light. She lay on the sand like an ostrich. Everyone was waiting for that shocking moment to come. But to everyone's surprise, nothing happened. When the sword spirit's white light beam hit the barrier, it was like a breeze blowing on the wall. It didn't feel anything at all. Everyone, including the white-robed elder and Li Mo, were dumbfounded. What's going on? The sword spirit was the first to be confused. He glanced at the barrier in midair. It's just an ordinary barrier. Why can't I open it? Let me try again. Ahem. The sword spirit coughed and an even more dazzling beam of spiritual energy shot out from his palm. Because it was so frightening, the crowd couldn't help but get nervous again. The beam of light struck the barrier once again. Everyone's eyes fell on the sky. The white-robed elder raised his hands again, preparing to receive the attack. But still nothing happened. Damn it, what's going on? The sword spirit was the first to go crazy. The white-robed old man looked at the old man in the all-seeing mirror, and he could not help but smile. He said with a smile, "So this sword spirit is just a divine sense." "Xianxia, what's going on?" Yun Ruoyan asked in confusion. "This sword spirit seems to be just a spiritual sense," Xianxia commented after a long moment of observation. After observing for a long time, Xianxia didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It seems that this muddle-headed old man doesn't know that he's just a divine sense. Spiritual sense. This was the first time Yun Ruoyan had heard of such a term. What spiritual sense? Xianxia quickly answered Yun Ruoyan's question in her mind. When a cultivator reached the peak of cultivation, they would form an inner core in their spiritual vortex. Yun Ruoyan had only known that magical beast had inner cores, but this was the first time she had heard from Xianxia that humans could form inner cores through cultivation. At the same time, a cultivator's spiritual energy would be greatly enhanced, and this enhanced spiritual energy would be known as the spiritual sense. If a perfected cultivator's consciousness could find an object to attach to after death, it could last for thousands of years. Such an object could be a spirit artifact, or it could be a spirit grass or spirit medicine. Yun Ruoyan and Xianxia had always thought that the sword spirit in the Feilai blade had been formed from the blade itself, but they hadn't expected him to be the spiritual sense of a dead peak cultivator. The spiritual sense could also attack, but its attack power was less than 1,000th of that of the main body. However, it could display the effects of the main body. While it was useful for scaring people in a real battle, it would still be more effective if it attached itself to a spiritual weapon. "How dare you, sword spirit! If you don't wake up, I'll subdue you right now." The white-robed elder's voice rang out through the barrier. This voice suddenly came from mid-air. Although it was not loud, it still shocked everyone present. "Xianxia, who's that voice?" Xianxia replied. That voice belonged to the one whose cultivation had reached the consummate realm. "You dare." The sword spirit pointed at the air sternly. "Do you know who I am? How dare a junior like you boast about subduing me?" "Oh? Who are you then?" asked the white-robed old man. The power of this divine sense was indeed very strong. However, it was only a divine sense. His original body had already died. Therefore, the white-robed old man wasn't afraid of it. He was just curious about it. "I am." The sword spirit opened his mouth arrogantly, but he couldn't bring himself to say anything else. "Who am I?" The sword spirit patted his head and muttered to himself somewhat impatiently, "Who am I? Why can't I remember who I am?" The white-robed old man saw that the old sword spirit was scratching his ears and cheeks, and didn't know what he was doing. So he urged, "Since you don't want to speak, then don't blame me for being ruthless. How can the trial ground tolerate the existence of your divine sense? I'll take you away and punish your master after the trial is over." "What should I do? I've been asleep for so long that I've forgotten who I am," the sword spirit muttered to himself. When he heard the white-robed elder say that he wanted to take him in, he immediately bent down and hid within the Feilai blade like a cat. "How embarrassing!" Xianxia exclaimed in Yun Ruoyan's mind. "Don't tell anyone that we know him." Just as the white-robed elder was about to retract the Feilai blade, Li Mo spoke up to stop him. "First elder, please wait." "What's the matter?" The white-robed elder turned to Li Mo. "This spiritual weapon has already recognized that student as its master. Even if you retract it, you won't be able to use it, so why don't you just leave it with its master?" Li Mo replied, "This spiritual weapon has immense potential, and as its master matures, it'll become even more powerful. If it were to be left with us, it would lose its master's spiritual energy and become nothing more than a piece of scrap metal." The white-robed elder pondered for a moment, then said, "But possessing such a powerful totem at such a young age is not necessarily a good thing. A powerful spiritual weapon could undoubtedly increase one's offensive capabilities, but it could also make one slack off." This was a common problem among the scions of the royal capital. This was also the reason why Kongming Academy confiscated spiritual weapons from the scions of the royal families. What the white-robed elder didn't know was that Yun Ruoyan was an extremely restrained person. As long as her life wasn't in danger, she would almost never use the Feilai blade. Li Mo was well aware of this, because even after spending so much time with Yun Ruoyan, he hadn't known that she had hidden such a spiritual weapon. It was clear how well she had hidden it. The first elder can seal this spiritual weapon so that it can be used by its master for cultivation, but its master won't be able to use it until he or she becomes a 9th-rank blade master, Li Mo suggested. The white-robed elder looked at Yun Ruoyan through the all-seeing mirror. Seeing that she was young and had a strange expression on her face, he couldn't help but ask, "You're more familiar with the scions of the royal family than I am. Do you know this girl?" Li Mo didn't intend to answer the white-robed elder's question, but now that the white-robed elder had asked, Li Mo couldn't hide the truth. Her name is Yun Ruoyan, and she's the wife-born daughter of a high-ranking official, Yun Lan. To tell you the truth, I have some ties with her. The white-robed elder glanced at Li Mo with interest. "I know that you don't like to make friends with others, but since you're saying that you have some ties with her, I'm sure it's not just any ordinary relationship." "I'm engaged to her," Li Mo replied frankly. The white-robed elder was a little surprised, because Yun Ruoyan looked far too inconspicuous through the all-seeing mirror. Compared to Li Mo, she was like a bright moon in the sky, a rock on the ground. "What's so special about her?" the white-robed elder asked again. "She's saved me many times. Most importantly, I believe that she wouldn't abandon me under any circumstances," Li Mo replied. Chapter 199. Li Mo didn't tell the old man about the human furnace. This secret was so important that he was the only one in the world who knew about it, not even to the white-robed old man who had done him a great favor. The old man sighed inaudibly. He couldn't help but think back to how he had found Li Mo in a cold, dark cave in the middle of winter. At the time, Li Mo was no more than 5 or 6 years old, and he had survived for 10 days on the fresh blood of a small spiritual beast. By the time the white-robed old man had found him, he was already on the verge of death. As the white-robed old man cradled Li Mo in his arms, he kept calling out, "Father, mother, palace mistress, don't go. I'll be a good boy, don't abandon me." The white-robed old man didn't know how Li Mo had managed to survive, but he knew that from then on, the once adorable child had become cold and distant. What the white-robed old man hadn't expected was that there would be a girl in this world who could walk into Li Mo's heart. A smile involuntarily appeared on his aged face. "That's good." Although the girl looked a little strange, the old man didn't say it aloud. "Your father and mother would be very happy if they knew," the white-robed old man continued. Li Mo's lips curled up in a faint smile. "Since she's engaged to you, I'll forget about it this time. However, I'm not the only one who has the final say in Kongming Academy. After we leave the trial, make sure she's careful," the white-robed old man instructed. "Thank you, First Elder," Li Mo replied respectfully. "Xianxia, what's going on?" Within the imperial territory, Yun Ruoyan saw that the Feilai blade was still suspended in midair, and that the sword spirit had long since hidden within it. The rope of spiritual energy was still wrapped around the Feilai blade, but it was as if everything had stopped. There was no further movement from it. "Mistress, perhaps they're discussing how to deal with that muddle-headed sword spirit," Xianxia replied. "Will the Feilai blade be taken away?" Yun Ruoyan asked worriedly. Kongming Academy's rules forbade anyone from bringing a 5th-rank spiritual weapon into the imperial territory, and she was clearly breaking the rules. Yun Ruoyan was certain that the Feilai blade would be taken away, and she might even be stripped of her right to enter Kongming Academy. "I don't know, Master." Xianxia sounded very worried. A voice rang out in Yun Ruoyan's mind. "Little girl, I originally wanted to take away your spirit weapon before punishing you. However, since someone is pleading on your behalf, I will let you off this time. You don't have to confiscate the spiritual artifact, but seal it in your body for now. When you become a 9th-rank blade master, you can break the seal on your own." Yun Ruoyan wanted to ask who it was that had pleaded for her, but before she could, the voice had disappeared. At the same time, the ropes of spiritual energy binding the Feilai blade disappeared, and the blade returned to Yun Ruoyan's mind as if it were escaping. What entered her mind at the same time was a ray of white spiritual energy that shot out from the air. As the white spiritual energy entered Yun Ruoyan's mind, it enveloped and sealed the Feilai blade. What's going on? Why is there something binding me? The sword spirit shouted in Yun Ruoyan's mind. How dare you bind me? You bunch of blind fools. When I get out of here, I'll beat you until you cry for your parents. Old man, can you stop embarrassing yourself? Qiuqiu couldn't help but try to stop him. You little mythical beast, how dare you mock me? I'll beat you until your teeth fall all over the floor. The sword spirit continued. All right. Tell me who you are, old senior. Qiuqiu asked. The sword spirit was finally stumped by Qiuqiu's question. When I go to sleep, I'll definitely remember who I am when I wake up. She didn't know how long the sword spirit would sleep for, but Yun Ruoyan's mind finally calmed down. What just happened? Rong Yueshan, who had been burying her head in the sand, finally raised her head after a long period of silence. Lin Qingxian and Lin Qingxue were just as confused as Rong Yueshan. Almost at the same time they asked, Sister Ruoyan, what just happened? I'll tell you in detail later. Right now, it's more important to think of a way to escape, Yun Ruoyan whispered to the two sisters. After all that commotion, they had all forgotten about their current predicament. Now that they'd recovered from the shock, the soreness in their bodies seemed to have intensified. Rong Yueshan's bone-softening powder was truly extraordinary. Rong Yueshan slowly recovered from her daze. Just now, Yun Ruoyan had clearly used a very powerful spiritual weapon to kill her. But just as she thought she was going to die, a ray of spiritual energy suddenly appeared from the sky and stopped the spiritual weapon from killing her. Then the sword spirit appeared and the sword spirit began to fight with the spiritual energy in the sky. As for what happened after that, Rong Yueshan didn't know. Ever since then she hadn't dared to look up. But now that Rong Yueshan looked at her surroundings and the sky, everything seemed to have returned to normal. Even the powerful spiritual weapon that Yun Ruoyan had released was nowhere to be seen. Rong Yueshan guessed that Yun Ruoyan's spiritual weapon must have been defeated by the spiritual energy in the sky, and that the spiritual energy in the sky was most likely the work of a powerful individual from Kongming Academy who had saved her. Rong Yueshan hadn't expected that such a powerful individual from the academy would save her. After all, there were quite a few people who had died in this trial, so why would someone save her when her life was in danger? Rong Yueshan wondered if this powerful individual had taken a liking to her and wanted to take her in as a disciple. Rong Yueshan's heart was filled with ecstasy. Having lived 2 lives, she had a good eye for people. Just as she had said, Rong Yueshan was someone who liked to think she was smart. Yun Ruoyan, it won't be easy to kill me, will it? Rong Yueshan laughed. Even the heavens are on my side, so you're definitely going to die today. Rong Yueshan's tone changed. But if you're willing to tell me your secret, I'll consider giving you a quick death. Rong Yueshan couldn't help but take a step toward Yun Ruoyan. In the forest, Zhou Yifeng's eyes lit up. He loosened his bowstring and the wooden sword he'd made flew out. The body of the bow was made from the most common piece of softwood in the forest, while the string was made from vines. The combination of the two was a very crude bow, and its shooting range was extremely limited. As a result, Zhou Yifeng couldn't let go of even the slightest opportunity. The moment Rong Yueshan stepped into his shooting range, he released the arrow without hesitation. Because of the tiger canine arrowhead, the inferior wooden arrow was much more powerful. In her excitement, Rong Yueshan had forgotten that Zhou Yifeng was still lurking in the forest. As soon as she stepped forward, she heard a whooshing sound. Before she could retract her leg, the tiger canine arrowhead accurately pierced her thigh. Rong Yueshan cried out in pain as she fell to the ground. Seeing that he'd injured Rong Yueshan with a single arrow, Zhou Yifeng dashed out of the forest like a cheetah, charging toward Yun Ruoyan's group of 3. Rong Yueshan gritted her teeth and took out a silver dart from her waist, shooting it at Zhou Yifeng. Brother Zhou, be careful. Lin Qingxue called out. Zhou Yifeng nimbly dodged 3 or 4 silver darts in a row. Taking advantage of the gap between Rong Yueshan's second dart, he knocked another arrow and shot at Rong Yueshan. Because he didn't have time to attach the tiger canine arrowhead, the arrow's power was greatly reduced. Rong Yueshan shot a silver dart at the arrow in midair. The 4th grade silver dart easily sliced the wooden arrow in 2. Zhou Yifeng took the opportunity to attach the tiger canine arrowhead, then knocked an arrow at Rong Yueshan. Rong Yueshan, on the other hand, aimed her silver dart at the three of them. Once again the two sides faced off against each other. If you move recklessly, I'll shoot those three sisters. However, the row of silver darts in Rong Yueshan's hands wasn't aimed at Zhou Yifeng, but at the three Yun sisters. She knew that she wouldn't be able to hit Zhou Yifeng with her current injuries, so she changed her target to the three Yun sisters, who were similarly inflexible. Don't move recklessly either, or my arrow won't just be aimed at your legs, Zhou Yifeng warned. It looks like it won't be easy for her to escape, Yun Ruoyan murmured. Her companions are back. Haha, you won't be able to escape today. You'll all die here. Rong Yueshan had clearly sensed her companions' auras. A series of rustling footsteps sounded, and then three people walked out from the forest not far away. The one in the lead was the pale-faced youth with red lips and white teeth. 6 of Rong Yueshan's party had died, and now, including Rong Yueshan, there were only 4 of them left. Miss Rong, you're injured. The pale-faced youth called out in concern when he saw Rong Yueshan half kneeling on the ground. Don't worry about me for now, Rong Yueshan replied. Rong Yueshan exclaimed, but her gaze was still on Yun Ruoyan and Zhou Yifeng as she spoke. It would be difficult for her to make the same mistake twice. Let me ask you something. Where are the Qin citizens? Rong Yueshan asked. Just as you said, we lured them into the beast horde and not a single one of them survived, the pale-faced youth replied without a change in expression. Well done. You'll pay with your lives if you try to take advantage of me. Rong Yueshan spat viciously. Yun Ruoyan didn't know what sort of conflict Rong Yueshan had with the Qin Kingdom team, but it was enough to show that Rong Yueshan was a vicious woman. This made Yun Ruoyan even more determined to kill her. Miss Rong, what's the situation now? The pale-faced youth asked. Without Rong Yueshan's orders, the youth clearly didn't dare to act rashly. Ha! Rong Yueshan laughed coldly. Well, you've come just in time. Go and kill all 3 Yun sisters right now without sparing a single one. Chapter 200. Kill every single one of them. Rong Yueshan ordered the pale-faced youth. The pale-faced youth and the 2 youths behind him all turned to look at the 4 of them, but they didn't seem to have any intention of attacking. Those 3 girls have all been poisoned by the bone-softening powder, and they can't even move a finger, let alone cultivate. There's nothing to be afraid of. Rong Yueshan could tell that the 3 youths were wary of her. I'll keep the archer busy so there's no need to be afraid of him. Once we've dealt with them, we'll split their loot evenly, and with our current spoils, we'll be able to secure a spot for Kongming Academy. There'll be loot to be had, and we'll be able to eliminate a powerful opponent at the same time. What are you waiting for? At first, the 3 youths were quite wary of the arrow in Zhou Yifeng's hand. Although they could tell that Zhou Yifeng's bow was of poor quality, the wooden arrow knocked on the bow had a tiger canine arrowhead on its tip. Zhou Yifeng's ability to kill 2 birds with 1 stone had left a deep impression on the 3 youths, and they couldn't help but be a little wary. However, after Rong Yueshan's words, the 3 youths no longer had any reservations. Their eyes shone with killing intent as they approached Yun Ruoyan's group. Seeing this, Zhou Yifeng continued to aim the tiger canine arrowhead at Rong Yueshan as he approached Yun Ruoyan and her sisters. The pale-faced youth made a gesture, and the 2 youths behind him split up, preparing to attack from 3 sides. Sister Ruoyan, leave with Brother Zhou. Don't worry about us. The one who spoke was Lin Qingxue. If Yun Ruoyan and Zhou Yifeng really left the 2 sisters alone, they would be able to escape unscathed. Lin Qingxue didn't say a word. She knew Yun Ruoyan better than anyone else, and she knew that Yun Ruoyan wouldn't abandon the 2 of them. Yun Ruoyan's face was expressionless, and her half-black, half-white complexion was a little frightening. Her mind was racing. Zhou Yifeng, the only one who could fight, was being held back by Rong Yueshan. Although the other 3 youths weren't as strong as Rong Yueshan, they were at least 5th-rank blade masters based on their auras. The 3 5th-rank blade masters were completely helpless against the 3 girls who had been afflicted with a paralyzing powder. This was a hopeless situation. Was there any other way to turn this situation around? Yun Ruoyan's frown deepened and her expression grew more and more solemn. Qiu, Can I see if there's an antidote for this? Yun Ruoyan asked. A moment later, Qiu replied that Liemo had given her a lot of antidotes, but he hadn't given her the antidote for the cartilage powder. Mistress, you can't take the risk. Just then, Qiu could feel Yun Ruoyan forcefully circulating the spiritual energy within her spiritual vortex. Because the medicinal effect of soft bone powder seeped into the meridians, the spiritual power in the spirit sea was also restricted. If one forcefully used spiritual power without an antidote, it would cause great harm to the spirit sea and even the whole body. But right now, Yun Ruoyan was forcibly circulating the spiritual energy in her spiritual vortex, channeling a minuscule amount of spiritual energy into the bracelet. She wanted to use the bracelet's amplification to regain her ability to fight. Mistress, what you're doing will harm your cultivation greatly. Not only will it cause your cultivation to regress, but it could even cause your spiritual vortex to tremble and your cultivation to dissipate. Qiu explained the consequences to Yun Ruoyan, hoping that she would reconsider her actions. There's no other way. Saving everyone's lives is the most important. Having made up her mind, Yun Ruoyan continued to circulate her spiritual vortex, guiding the spiritual energy into the bracelet. It was as if a small stream of water had slowly formed a small pond. At the same time, the three youths approached step by step. The pale-faced youth in the middle was much faster than the other two. But when he was about 70 to 80 feet away from Yun Ruoyan's group, he suddenly stopped and took out a pitch-black bow from behind his back. Zhou Yifeng's bow, which he had taken from Lin Qingxue. The pale-faced youth knocked an arrow and aimed the white tiger canine arrowhead at Zhou Yifeng. My memory for archery is quite poor, but I'll be able to kill you at this distance, the pale-faced youth said, a sinister smile on his face. The youth didn't give Zhou Yifeng any time to react. He immediately released the arrow in his hand, and the tiger canine arrowhead tore through the air toward Zhou Yifeng. Zhou Yifeng really didn't have any time to react. He shot out his wooden sword at the youth as well. Both arrows were tiger canine arrowheads, but the youth's arrow was forged from steel and was extremely lethal, while Zhou Yifeng's arrow was made from ordinary wood from the forest. The pale-faced youth once again made the first move. Although he claimed that he wasn't proficient in archery, archery was still a compulsory course in the family academy. He felt that even if his archery skills weren't as good as Zhou Yifeng's, he would definitely win. But the youth had clearly underestimated Zhou Yifeng's archery skills and overestimated himself. The steel arrowhead could increase its lethality, but it also reduced the speed of the arrow. For Zhou Yifeng, who had astonishing arm strength, this disadvantage could be ignored, but for the pale-faced youth this disadvantage was fatal. The wooden arrow that Zhou Yifeng shot with all his strength seemed to be on fire as it scraped through the air. Like a stream of light, it shot toward the arrow shot by the pale-faced youth. At this moment, a shocking scene occurred. The two tiger canine arrowheads collided, causing dazzling sparks to fly. Everyone couldn't help but squint their eyes. In this moment of friction, the wooden arrow continued to pierce through the air, while the steel arrow slightly deviated due to the friction. The two arrows flew in the same direction, and the sound of arrows piercing flesh rang out at the same time. The pale-faced youth's eyes widened. He couldn't believe that the arrow had accurately pierced his heart. The tiger canine arrowhead had already pierced his heart. What was exposed outside of his chest was only an ordinary wooden stick. The youth's eyes widened as he looked at Zhou Yifeng across from him. He fell heavily onto the yellow sand behind him. On the other side, Zhou Yifeng had also been hit by an arrow. However, the arrow hadn't hit his vitals. Instead, it had hit his shoulder. Zhou Yifeng took advantage of the moment when the youth fell to the ground and everyone was still in a daze. He reached out and pulled out the arrow from his shoulder. Then he directly knocked the arrow on the bow in his hand. The arrowhead was still aimed at Rong Yueshan. Zhou Yifeng's action caused the other two youths to stare in shock. They saw that more than half of Zhou Yifeng's shoulder was dyed red with fresh blood. The blood dripped down the bow in his hand and into the yellow sand. But he didn't cry out in pain at all. It was as if he was a killing machine that didn't know pain. Rong Yueshan saw the youth fall to the ground and cried out involuntarily. Her voice was filled with pain. It was obvious that the relationship between the two was not ordinary. I'm going to kill you. Rong Yueshan roared at Zhou Yifeng. Then without hesitation she threw the silver dart in her hand. At the same time, Zhou Yifeng once again shot out the arrow that was still stained with his own blood. As soon as he let go, Zhou Yifeng felt that something was wrong. His originally strong hands suddenly felt weak. At the last moment the arrow lost its momentum. In addition, the body of the arrow was made of steel. A wooden bow couldn't handle it and Zhou Yifeng was injured. So the arrow was deflected by Rong Yueshan's dart. The arrow shot into the yellow sand beside Rong Yueshan. Zhou Yifeng's legs also softened. He knelt on one knee in the yellow sand. I don't have any strength in my body. Zhou Yifeng, who had been very calm all this time, couldn't help but feel nervous and afraid. He wasn't afraid of being hurt, but any of the three girls behind him were people he was willing to give up his life to protect. He couldn't let them get hurt. He tried to stand up again, but as soon as he exerted some strength, a wave of medicinal energy washed over him. The little bit of strength he had just gathered dissipated, and his entire body went limp as he knelt on the yellow sand. Haha, that's great. Rong Yueshan laughed. You've also been poisoned by the bone-softening powder. The heavens really want you to die. By this time the last rays of the sun were about to recede. The white-robed old man stroked his beard as he slowly said, "Not only do the students this year have rather high cultivations, they're all vicious and merciless. In the future they might become a force that can't be underestimated when they're sent to the foreign battlefields." Li Mo's eyes shone with worry. At this point, all four of them had been poisoned by the bone-softening powder. From Zhou Yifeng's reaction, it was clear that this poison had been concocted by a very skilled poisoner. Their current situation was very disadvantageous to them. Although Li Mo's face was obscured by his hood, the white-robed elder seemed to be able to see his worry. "Your fiancé's life is in danger." Li Mo narrowed his eyes, his tone cold. "If she can't even overcome such a crisis, she wouldn't be fit to be my wife." The white-robed elder nodded. "A man doesn't have to worry about not having a wife. Remember your mission." "I understand, First Elder," Li Mo replied respectfully. "It's time. Let's see how things turn out tomorrow." As soon as he finished speaking, the all-seeing mirror and the peak of the Kongming Peak retracted the last of the sunlight, and the all-seeing mirror closed as if it were a human eye. As the mirror closed, Yun Ruoyan seemed to sense it and she looked up into the sky, right into Li Mo's heart. Would this be the last time she would see him? Li Mo's heart skipped a beat. Clenching his fists, he followed the elder out. Chapter 201. She knew that there was a pair of eyes staring at them from above, but she didn't know whether that pair of eyes was monitoring them or observing them, and now wasn't the time to be thinking about it. The spiritual energy stored in the bracelet was equivalent to the spiritual energy a third-rank blade master could unleash in a single attack. Amplified by the bracelet, the spiritual energy released would be equivalent to the attack of a peak 6th-rank blade master. Rong Yueshan was the strongest of the three, a peak blade master. However, she was injured and she didn't think that the three of them would be able to retaliate, so she wouldn't use her full strength. "If you still don't dare to attack, then don't say that you know me in the capital." Rong Yueshan glanced at the other two timid youths. The two youths in Rong Yueshan's group were both peak 5th-rank blade masters, but they valued their lives more than anything else, especially after the series of battles they had gone through. As a result, even though Zhou Yifeng and the rest of the party were so weak, they still didn't dare to charge in and kill the beasts. However, it was this cowardice that saved their lives. What two useless things. Rong Yueshan watched as the two of them inched toward Yun Ruoyan's group of four. She was so angry that she wanted to vomit blood and she couldn't help cursing them. "Young Mistress Rong, don't you think you're a pain in the ass? Those four people are as cunning and fierce as wolves. Who knows if they're just trying to blow me up?" One of the youths retorted. "That's exactly what I meant," another youth added. Another young man also said, "There were 8 of us who followed you, but now there are only 2 of us left. I'm the only son in the 3rd generation of our family. I'm here to learn from Kongming Academy, not to die." The 2 youths clearly didn't want to take the risk. In the morning they had followed the pale-faced youth to lure the Qin Kingdom party into the beast horde. Then the 3 of them hid by the side until the battle was over. Although the Qin Kingdom party was almost completely wiped out, they had managed to kill a large number of beasts. The three of them had gained quite a bit, and even if they didn't try to steal the high-rank beast cores from Yun Ruoyan's group, they were confident that they would be able to enter Kongming Academy. Therefore, if they could avoid taking risks, the two of them were naturally unwilling to do so. Rong Yueshan could see through the thoughts of the two youths and could not help but say angrily, "Ha, the two of you are really lowly people with no ambitions." Rong Yueshan. At this time Yun Ruoyan spoke up. "Didn't you want to kill me? Then do it yourself. Why do you have to get someone else to do it?" "Yes, if you want to go yourself," the two youths said almost at the same time. Although Rong Yueshan's leg was hit by an arrow, it wasn't a vital point. Zhou Yifeng also didn't have the habit of smearing poison on his arrowheads. As a result, even though she was injured, she was still a formidable presence in front of Yun Ruoyan's group. The only reason she hadn't stepped forward herself was because she was used to giving orders, and if she didn't have to do it herself, she would rather watch. "Fine, then this young lady will personally take your dog lives." Yun Ruoyan and the two youths taunted Rong Yueshan, and she limped toward Yun Ruoyan's group. She held a steel sword in her hand, ready to chop off the heads of all four of them. Zhou Yifeng still stood in front of the three youths, clearly expressing his stance. If they wanted to harm Yun Ruoyan's group, they would have to chop off his head first. "Zhou Yifeng, get behind me," Yun Ruoyan whispered to Zhou Yifeng. Although Zhou Yifeng had been paralyzed by the poison, his back was still straight, and he was unmoved by Yun Ruoyan's words. Yun Ruoyan was a little anxious. Seeing that Rong Yueshan was about to reach her, she continued in a low voice, "Get behind me, I have a way to deal with her. Brother Zhou, it doesn't make a difference whether you die sooner or later. Just listen to Sister Ruoyan." Hearing this, Zhou Yifeng slowly retreated behind Yun Ruoyan's group. "Io, why is your heroism gone now that you're about to die?" Rong Yueshan couldn't help but laugh when she saw Zhou Yifeng's movements. Yun Ruoyan replied, "This is all a grudge between me and the Rong family, and they've merely been dragged into it. You want to plead on their behalf?" "No way," Rong Yueshan said viciously. Rong Yueshan said fiercely, "Almost all of my companions died at the hands of the two of you. Both of you must die today. In that case, if you want to kill them, you'll have to kill me first," Yun Ruoyan provoked. "But I'm the sole wife-born daughter of the Yun family, and you're just a concubine daughter of the Rong family. If you kill me, even if the Yun family doesn't look for trouble with the Rong family in the open, we definitely won't let you off in secret. At that time, it'll be up to Rong Yueshan to ensure your safety. After all, if one concubine daughter dies, there will be many more." On the Qinyuan continent, wife-born daughters were the head of the concubine daughters. There was only one wife-born daughter, but there were many concubine daughters. As a result, most families valued wife-born daughters. Take Rong Tianling for example. Even if Rong Yuehong were to die, he would send Rong Yueshan to kill Yun Ruoyan no matter the cost. Yun Ruoyan's words weren't meant to scare Rong Yueshan away, but rather to incite her anger and indignation. Why is a concubine's daughter inferior to a wife-born daughter? Rong Yuehong had always suppressed Rong Yueshan in the Rong family. Whether it was spiritual artifacts or spiritual herbs, Rong Yuehong was the only one who had access to the best resources in the family. Only the concubines like Rong Yuehong had access to them. After I kill you as a concubine, I'll be the wife-born daughter of the Rong family. Don't think I don't know how you've managed to survive in the Yun family." Rong Yueshan was so enraged by Yun Ruoyan's words that she couldn't even feel the pain in her leg. She quickly walked up to Yun Ruoyan, raised her sword high and made a cutting motion. Rong Yueshan had heard about Yun Ruoyan from Yi Qianying, and she knew that Yun Ruoyan's status in the Yun family had only changed in the past few months. Even as a wife-born daughter, she had always been disliked. "Even if I kill you, your father Yunlon might not be sad for you." Rong Yueshan swung her sword at Yun Ruoyan. "Ah!" Both Lin Qingxue and Lin Qingchen couldn't help but cry out, closing their eyes at the same time. On the second-to-last floor of the tower, there were two soft couches near the railing. Li Mo was lying on one of them, a cup of wine in his hand filled to the brim. Li Mo stared blankly at the wine in his cup, his gaze uncontrollably landing on the empty couch beside him. It was on that couch that Yun Ruoyan had curled up into a small ball. Li Mo knew that this was an extremely insecure position. Such a woman who lacked a sense of security, had more than once nestled in his arms, snuggling and clinging to him. That snuggling and clinging to him had warmed Li Mo, who had been lonely and cold for so long. Perhaps only Yun Ruoyan could give him that kind of warmth. The white-robed elder had once said that a man should never worry about not having a wife. There were so many women in the world, but how many women could give you warmth and be able to affect your emotions? Perhaps if you lost this one, you would forever live in a cold world and your cold heart would never be warmed up again. Li Mo's grip loosened and the wine cup fell to the ground. He stood up from the couch, turned and strode toward the door, leaving a gust of cold wind in his wake. Li Mo's footsteps were as swift as the wind and he quickly reached the top floor. In 2 steps he was in front of the all-seeing mirror. He was going to forcefully open it. He placed his palms on the all-seeing mirror, and his powerful spirit energy caused his black robe to flutter. The dazzling light of spirit energy was injected into the all-seeing mirror. The all-seeing mirror's eyelids were forced open like a person in deep sleep. Li Mo changed his hand seals, clasping 2 fingers together to form a sword and pointing it at his forehead. A spot of divine light leaped from his forehead to his fingertips. Li Mo pointed at the all-seeing mirror, and the beam of divine light flew into it. The white-robed elder, who had been resting in the darkened room, suddenly opened his eyes and muttered to himself. He actually forcefully opened the all-seeing mirror. Is that woman so important to him that he doesn't care about the consequences of his actions? At the same time as the white-robed elder, there were 5 other elders who felt the all-seeing mirror being forcefully opened. They were cultivating in 4 different directions on the Kongming mountain peak, and they usually didn't pay much attention to the affairs of the academy. The 6 elders took turns recruiting students, and this time, it was the white-robed elder's turn. However, now that the all-seeing mirror had been forcefully opened, they couldn't stay out of it any longer. Together with the white-robed elder, all 6 of them flew toward the top of the tower. By the time Li Mo's divine light had entered the trial, Rong Yueshan's sword had already struck down. Yun Ruoyan had also raised her bracelet. After being provoked by Yun Ruoyan several times, Rong Yueshan unleashed her full cultivation, and her steel sword struck Yun Ruoyan's bracelet with immense spiritual energy. At the same time, the bracelet unleashed a nearly identical attack. How is this possible? Rong Yueshan exclaimed. How can she still attack? In that case, we'll have to compete in endurance. After using the bracelet's power, Yun Ruoyan was at the end of her tether. If she couldn't kill Rong Yueshan in a single blow, she would be no match for her in endurance alone. However, just as the bracelet was about to run out of energy, Yun Ruoyan suddenly felt a powerful surge of spiritual energy enter her body. This spiritual power was unfamiliar. It did not come from the silver bracelet, nor did it come from her own body. Although Yun Ruoyan was puzzled, she didn't hesitate to grab hold of this surge of spiritual energy and use it as her own. The surge of spiritual energy pierced through Yun Ruoyan's palm and struck Rong Yueshan's chest. Rong Yueshan spat out a mouthful of blood and fell 15 feet away. Chapter 202. First Elder, why are you allowing your disciple to cheat like this? In front of the all-seeing mirror, Li Mo was surrounded by 6 white-robed elders. One of them, a tall, skinny man, asked the first elder beside Li Mo. The other 4 elders also looked toward the first elder, waiting for his response. This girl can't die, the first elder declared coolly. Why? The tall, skinny elder stepped forward. Heavenly secrets cannot be revealed, the first elder continued calmly. You. The tall, skinny elder's face turned red, and he was on the verge of exploding. Second elder, please calm down. The chubby 4th elder hurriedly pulled the second elder back and said, since we're all here, let's take a good look at what's so special about this woman that the great elder's esteemed disciple would risk his life to save her. That's right, since we're all here, let's take a look, the other 3 elders agreed. Humph. The second elder snorted. Forcefully activating the all-seeing mirror will result in heavenly punishment. Since the first elder isn't worried, why should I be? The first elder clenched his fists imperceptibly behind his back as he stared unblinkingly at Li Mo's illusory figure. Sinemo, do you know what you are doing? the great elder silently said in his heart. Yun Ruoyan's palm strike shocked even herself. What should have been a 6th-rank Blade Master's attack had been raised to 8th rank by the sudden surge of spiritual energy in her body. 10 feet away, Rong Yueshan lay lifelessly on the ground, looking as though she wouldn't be able to survive. The 2 youths who were watching from the side were so scared that they turned around and ran into the forest. As they ran, they were glad that they didn't believe Rong Yueshan's words. Otherwise, the 2 of them would be the ones dead. Yun Ruoyan turned around to look at her surroundings, but she didn't see anything out of the ordinary. Although Li Mo's illusory figure was only a few feet away from her, the tips of their noses were almost touching. However, with Yun Ruoyan's current cultivation, she couldn't see Li Mo. Yun Ruoyan's half-white, half-black face appeared in front of Li Mo, leaving him both speechless and amused. This woman seemed to be addicted to disguising herself as ugly. Now her disguise had reached a new level of ugliness. There was really no saving her. Is everyone okay? She couldn't figure out what the problem was, so she stopped thinking about it. Instead, she turned her attention to the others. We're fine. Lin Qingchen, Lin Qingxue, and Zhou Yifeng replied simultaneously. I just feel weak all over, Lin Qingxue said. Rong Yueshan must have the antidote on her, Yun Ruoyan began. Wait here, I'll go get it. Yun Ruoyan found the antidote on Rong Yueshan's body and gave it to each of them. After a short period of rest, they slowly recovered their spiritual energy. Li Mo stood by the side, silently guarding them until they had recovered. Only then did Li Mo leave. Li Mo was well aware of the consequences of forcibly opening the all-seeing mirror. As soon as he exited the chamber, he would face heavenly punishment. However, Li Mo's heart was calm and cheerful. If protecting a person could make you feel happy, then that person was your treasure. Unknowingly, Yun Ruoyan had become a treasure in Li Mo's heart. As soon as Li Mo left, something else happened. Look, what's that? Lin Qingxue suddenly pointed to the west, where a scarlet beam of light shot into the sky, followed by the roars of beasts. A spiritual treasure has appeared. Yun Ruoyan, Lin Qingchen, and Zhou Yifeng exclaimed in unison. When Li Mo returned to his position, he found himself surrounded by the 6 elders. However, this was within his expectations, so he didn't panic in the slightest. I'll go to the Hall of Penitence to receive heavenly punishment, Li Mo said before any of the 6 elders could speak. What a brilliant disciple. The 2nd elder was about to say something else, but he was suddenly attracted by the sudden change in the all-seeing mirror. Not only the 2nd elder but the other 5 elders, including Li Mo, were also attracted by the scarlet beam of light. Saint-grade spiritual treasure. Several voices called out at the same time. How long has it been since the imperial territory last produced a spirit-grade spiritual treasure? The 1st elder's eyes shone as he stared at the beam of light. At least 300 years, the short 5th elder replied. Everyone thought that spirit-grade spiritual treasures had long since disappeared, but there were still many spirit-grade spiritual treasures, as well as spirit-grade beasts, and even spirit-grade cultivators in other realms that were independent of the Qinyuan continent. However, realms that were too powerful were beyond the reach of the world. Even Kongming Academy, which everyone looked up to, could only look up to these terrifying existences. Who would be the lucky one to obtain a spirit-grade spiritual treasure? The elders couldn't help craning their necks to look at the all-seeing mirror. Within the imperial territory, the scarlet beam of light caused the eyes of Yun Ruoyan and the others to light up. For a spirit-grade spiritual treasure to cause such a strong phenomenon, it had to be of an extraordinarily high grade. Such an intense abnormal sign would definitely attract many people to go and fight over it. The 4 of them quickly searched for their weapons and prepared to go. Lin Qingchen's flexible sword was on the pale-faced youth's body, but Lin Qingxue's daggers were nowhere to be seen. She took out the silver darts that Rong Yueshan had hidden at her waist and handed them to Lin Qingxue. Although Lin Qingxue hadn't learned how to use concealed weapons, she had learned archery from Zhou Yifeng, and her accuracy was still decent. After each of them found their weapons, the 4 of them quickly headed in the direction of the spirit-grade spiritual treasure. The few of them had just left when Rong Yueshan, who was on the yellow sand, moved her fingers almost imperceptibly. The thin and tall 2nd elder unintentionally noticed this slight movement. his eyes involuntarily looking at Rong Yueshan a few more times. Young Master Wang, save me. In a secluded valley, Yun Ruyao was being chased by quite a few mystic-eyed lions. As she ran from their claws, she called out to Wang Meng, who wasn't too far away, for help. However, all of Wang Meng's attention was focused on a scarlet plant about 200 feet up the cliff. Scarlet Sun, a fire-attuned spiritual herb, was an essential ingredient for refining a Scarlet Sun pill. Scarlet Sun pills could help a pillmaster increase their ability to quickly condense a fire-attuned spiritual flame, and were an excellent choice for pillmasters who weren't particularly talented. Although Scarlet Sun was rare on the Qinyuan continent, it still existed. However, this particular stock of Scarlet Sun was glowing brightly, indicating that it had just broken through to saintly rank. It was a treasure that had only recently been born. The intense spiritual energy fluctuations that Wang Meng and Yun Ruyao had felt earlier were a sign that this stock of Scarlet Sun was about to be born. Scarlet Sun pills refined from regular Scarlet Sun were already extremely valuable. If a pill refined from a saintly Scarlet Sun were to be consumed, wouldn't it mean that one would have an inexhaustible supply of fire-attuned spiritual energy? Just thinking about it made Wang Meng's heart beat wildly. Ah! Yun Ruyao screamed in pain. She hadn't been able to dodge in time, and one of the lions had scratched her shoulder. Another took advantage of the opportunity to bite down on one of Yun Ruyao's legs, swinging her around in midair. The pain caused Yun Ruyao to feel dizzy. Help! Yun Ruyao looked at Wang Meng pleadingly. When Wang Meng heard her cry, he turned back to look at her coldly, his gaze devoid of any pity. You only have yourself to blame. Wang Meng exclaimed before releasing spiritual energy from his feet and leaping 30 feet into the air. He climbed onto the cliff face of the valley, then leaped toward the Scarlet Sun once more. As Wang Meng approached the Scarlet Sun, the surviving students rushed over from all directions. Because Pei Xiao and Yi Qianying were the closest to the valley, they were the first to arrive. Miss Yun was attacked by a magic-eyed lion. As soon as the two of them entered the valley, the first thing they saw was a magic-eyed lion swinging Yun Ruyao around like a rag doll. Don't go over. Yi Qianying stopped Pei Xiao. Sister Ruyao's been poisoned with beast-attracting powder. Unless you can kill all of these beast-eyed beasts, no one will be able to save her. Beast-attracting powder? Pei Xiao looked at Yi Qianying strangely. Who poisoned her? Who else? Yi Qianying laughed coldly. Whoever was with Sister Ruyao was the one who poisoned her. Impossible. Pei Xiao immediately denied it. Young Master Wang likes Miss Yun. As Pei Xiao spoke, he looked at Yi Qianying suspiciously. Are you suspecting me? Yi Qianying asked incredulously. Haven't you used beast-attracting powder before? Pei Xiao countered. Back in the Imperial territory, Yi Qianying had used beast-attracting powder to harm Yun Ruyan, but Yi Qianying hadn't expected Pei Xiao to suspect her because of that. Yi Qianying's heart was filled with despair. It seemed that her image in Pei Xiao's eyes was hopeless, and no matter how much effort she put in, it would all be for naught. In that case, she had no choice but to give up. But Yi Qianying laughed mournfully. He say so. Pei Xiao's expression seemed to indicate that he had expected this. Look, that's a spiritual treasure. At this time, a group of people also entered the cliff valley. One of them pointed at the crimson plant on the cliff, whose red light was gradually fading, and shouted. That's the Amaranthan sun. Someone recognized the Amaranthan sun. Such a high-grade Amaranthan sun, if refined into an Amaranthan sun pill, could turn a commoner into a top-notch pillmaster. The crowd erupted in an uproar. Hurry, someone's going to get there first. Someone shouted. Then everyone rushed forward and used all the spiritual energy in their bodies to quickly climb up the cliff walls where the crimson sun grass grew. Soon after, more and more people arrived and joined the group. Your good brother's going to get the spiritual treasure. Are you going to watch or help? Yi Qianying reminded Pei Xiao. Without another word, Pei Xiao ran toward the cliff face. Yi Qianying bit her lip, sprinkled a colorless, odorless powder on Pei Xiao's back and quickly retreated. Attracted by the new beast-attracting powder, the mystic-eyed lions turned their attention from Yun Ruyao to Pei Xiao, who had already run into the crowd. They left the dying Yun Ruyao behind, roaring as they charged into the crowd. Chapter 203. The magical beasts rushed towards Pei Zhou. Pei Zhou blended into the crowd and the 6 lions rushed into the crowd. Some of the faster students had already scaled the cliff face, including Pei Zhou. Those who weren't fast enough began battling the lions. 20 or so students against 6 lions that had gone berserk from the beast-attracting powder was an intense battle. When Yun Ruoyan's group of 3 arrived, they were greeted by the sight of the beast-attracting powder. No matter how hard we tried, we still fell behind. Lin Qingxue put her hands on her hips, panting. Everyone wants to get their hands on a rare treasure. I'm afraid that everyone who's still alive from the trial is here, Shui Yifeng commented as he looked at the people climbing up the cliff face. Everyone's gaze landed on the cliff face. They saw a scarlet plant growing high up on the cliff face. The plant itself wasn't very eye-catching, but the scarlet glow it emitted was very eye-catching. Maranthan's son. A Pillmaster's treasure. Their eyes lit up at the same time. Lin Qingxue pointed at the cliff face and cried out. That Wang Meng is running at the front. After a series of leaps and bounds, Wang Meng had already reached the Amaranthan sun, and he was just about to claim it. Yun Ruoyan couldn't help but feel a little anxious. She rushed toward the cliff face first, and Zhui Yifeng's group followed closely behind. Other than Yi Qianying, no one else noticed Yun Ruoyao's lifeless body. Yi Qianying's cultivation was low, and she knew that she hadn't participated in the fight for the Amaranthan sun. She walked up to Yun Ruoyao and squatted down. Sister Ruoyao, are you all right? Yun Ruoyao's body was drenched in blood, and Yi Qianying carefully nudged her from a clean spot. Save me, save me. A weak voice came from Yun Ruoyao's mouth. Yi Qianying was very surprised that Yun Ruoyao was still alive despite her severe injuries. Since she wasn't dead, she couldn't act immediately. Yi Qianying helped Yun Ruoyao up. When she saw Yun Ruoyao's face, she couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. The right side of Yun Ruoyao's face was a bloody mess. Clearly, it had been bitten off by the demon-eyed lion. Even her right eyelid had been torn off, revealing her bulging eyeball. It was a frightening sight. Just what kind of enmity did Wang Meng have with Yun Ruoyao that the beast-attracting powder he'd concocted would contain a bewitching powder that prevented the lions from killing Yun Ruoyao directly, instead treating her like a toy and torturing her? Qianying, my face hurts, Yun Ruoyao murmured weakly. Save me, get me out of here. At this point, Yun Ruoyao had lost 8.5% of her life with only 1.5 remaining. If she were treated with a spiritual pill in time, perhaps she could still be saved. But Yi Qianying smiled coldly inside. Sister Ruoyao, I'm afraid you'd be better off dead than in this state. What do you mean? Yun Ruoyao stared straight at Yi Qianying with her eyelid, causing Yi Qianying's hair to stand on end. She averted her gaze and continued, see for yourself. As she spoke, Yi Qianying unsheathed her steel sword and held it vertically in front of Yun Ruoyao, its smooth mirror-like surface reflecting Yun Ruoyao's ghostly face. Yun Ruoyao's eyes widened as she stared at her reflection on the sword. The more frightened she was, the scarier her reflection became. One of her eyeballs looked as if it would pop out of its socket at any moment. Yun Ruoyao couldn't take it any longer, and before she could breathe, her head lolled to the ground and she died. Yi Qianying looked at Yun Ruoyao, who had died with her eyes wide open, and took a deep breath. Her eyes were cold and vicious. She quickly removed Yun Ruoyao's storage pouch, then silently retreated and continued to hide. The 7 people in front of the all-seeing glasses looked down at everything that was happening in the training ground. Some of them frowned slightly, feeling a little concerned about the massacre that was happening, while others relaxed their brows and looked peaceful, as if what they were seeing was not a bloody massacre, but an interesting performance. The tall and skinny second elder, who had always kept a straight face, was now smiling. Although there aren't as many students this time around as there were in previous years, all of them are incredibly strong. Those who remain will surely be the cream of the crop. The chubby fourth elder also smiled. That's right, I already have a candidate for my disciple. Just how many lives will we have to sacrifice in order to participate in this foreign war? The short fifth elder sighed. Liamo didn't say a word, only staring at the mirror. Yun Ruoyao's thin but agile figure quickly climbed up the cliff, and Zhui Yifeng followed closely behind, taking care of those who tried to attack her. The 2 of them worked very well together and they quickly overtook many others. However, there were still quite a few people in front of them. Yun Ruoyan immediately spotted Pei Zio, who was being attacked by a few people on her left. Although he was surrounded, he was able to use his superior cultivation to quickly knock 2 people off the cliff. Yun Ruoyan dug out a small pebble from the cliff and threw it at Pei Zio with all her might. Pei Zio's shoulder was hit and someone was raising a leg to kick him. Unable to dodge in time, he fell straight down the cliff. As he fell, Pei Zio's gaze landed on Yun Ruoyan. He knew that Yun Ruoyan had plotted against him, but he still couldn't understand the question that had been bothering him all this time. Yun Ruoyan, why do you hate me so much? Yun Ruoyan glanced at Pei Zio coolly, thinking that falling from this height would mean certain death. All this time she hadn't been able to find an opportunity to kill Pei Zio. Now that she had gotten her revenge, Yun Ruoyan found it strange that she didn't feel much pleasure from it. She quickly turned her attention back to the amaranthan sun in front of her. Unexpectedly, however, Pei Zio didn't die. His body fell straight down onto the carcass of a demon-eyed lion. He had been seriously injured, but he had been saved by a hidden Xianxia. It seemed that the two of them hadn't reached the end of their ill-fated relationship. Wang Meng hadn't expected that, despite his speed, someone would still catch up to him. Behind him, a man about the same age as him tried to pull Wang Meng down by his leg, but Wang Meng dodged his attack. The man continued to fight with Wang Meng on the cliff. This gave the people behind him a chance to catch up. On the cliff, more than 20 people were attacking each other as they climbed, and from time to time someone would fall from the cliff. The ground was also bustling with activity. Of the 6 demon-eyed lions, 3 had died, 1 had escaped, and 1 was half dead. The students who hadn't participated in the fight for the amaranthan sun, including the Lin sisters. Their cultivation wasn't weak and they were able to reap a bountiful harvest. Look, someone's got the treasure, the 6th elder said. Looks like the treasure belongs to him. The all-seeing mirror showed that Wang Meng had shaken off the man behind him and leaped forward, grabbing the amaranthan sun in his hand. The 6 elders held their breaths, but just as Wang Meng's hand was about to grab the crimson sun and pull it out, a black claw suddenly shot out from the crack in the cliff in front of them and stabbed at Wang Meng's hand. Caught off guard, Wang Meng suffered a direct hit. The web between his thumb and index finger was pierced by the sharp claws, leaving a bloody hole. Wang Meng reacted quickly, retracting his hand just as the claw was about to pierce his right hand again. Enduring the pain, Wang Meng leaped back 20 feet. Wang Meng was filled with regret. How could there only be a few devil-eyed lions guarding such a rare treasure? He had really committed the taboo of greed and recklessness. Treasure isn't so easily obtainable. The man behind Wang Meng laughed loudly. After laughing, the man took out a metal hook from his waist and tossed it toward the amaranthan sun, hoping to snatch the treasure from afar. Of course, the demon-eyed beast hiding in the crack in the cliff didn't give the man the chance to do so, and its sharp claws knocked the hook away. A pitch-black, shiny head poked out from the crack in the mountain wall. Turned out to be a giant centipede. The centipede crawled out of the crack and stood in front of the amaranthan sun, its 2 beady eyes staring at Wang Meng and the man beside him. A steel-plated centipede. Qiuqiu's voice rang out in Yun Ruoyan's mind, telling her that the centipede wasn't poisonous, but its body was incredibly tough, and even spiritual weapons couldn't hurt it. After hearing Qiuqiu's words, Yun Ruoyan decided to hide and watch how the 2 men in front of her fought. Clearly, the 2 men recognized the centipede and they didn't seem alarmed. So, shall we work together to kill it? We'll split the amaranthan sun in half. The man told Wang Meng. Wang Meng looked at the horizon. The sky was already bright, and if he didn't get the amaranthan sun by noon, he'd regret it for the rest of his life. No matter what, he had to get rid of the centipede first. That's exactly what I was thinking. Wang Meng replied. There was no need for a tacit understanding between experts. As long as both sides didn't hold back and use their full strength, the power would be immense. The 2 figures simultaneously attacked the centipede. The man had a metal hook in his hand, and Wang Meng had a sharp dagger that glinted with a cold light. Although the centipede's armor was incredibly tough, there was still some soft flesh between the armor, and the 2 men's hands locked onto that soft flesh. As the weapons pierced into the flesh, the centipede curled up in pain, clamping down on the weapons in their hands. If they lost their weapons, the two men would have no chance of killing the centipede. As a result, the two men gripped their weapons tightly and didn't let go. The centipede's rapid crawl had dragged the two men several meters away. Here's my chance. Yun Ruoyan's lips curled up as she nimbly dashed forward. In 2 leaps, she was in front of the amaranthine sun. Without hesitation, she reached out and plucked the glowing amaranthine sun from its roots. The third elder said, "Many years ago I sent someone to the Wang family for a special recruitment, but the head of the Wang family didn't want his youngest son to leave home, so I didn't force him. I don't know why he took the initiative to participate in the trial this year, so I made an exception and agreed. I am in charge of the medicine refinement hall, so this child is naturally my student." Who said that students with talent in alchemy must join the medicine refinement hall. The third elder was unconvinced. "Don't worry, fourth elder. That young man is not bad either." The sixth elder chuckled. "That's the heir of the Qin Kingdom's Zhao family, Zhao Chong. His cultivation isn't any weaker than the Wang family's." Although Zhao Chong's cultivation wasn't any weaker than Wang Meng's, his talent for pill-making was inferior. Over the years, the third elder had accepted all of the talented students into the medicine refinement hall, making it so that when the medicine refinement hall required the third elder's approval, the fourth elder was quite dissatisfied. This time he was determined to fight for it. After Wang Meng and Zhao Chong dealt with the centipede, they turned their attention to Yun Ruoyan. "Miss Yun, I don't want to make things difficult for you. Hand over the amaranthine sun." Wang Meng decided to be polite before resorting to force, considering Yun Ruoyan's relationship with Liemo, young Master Wang. "Since the amaranthine sun is in my hands, I can't possibly hand it over. If you want it, come and fight for it," Yun Ruoyan replied. "Cut the crap. It's yours to whoever gets it first." Zhao Chong leaped toward Yun Ruoyan. Not far from Yun Ruoyan, Zhao Chong climbed up the stone wall and twirled the chain and hook in his hands into a circular shadow. Motes of white spiritual energy floated above the shadow. Not only were the Qin Kingdom's people forthright, but they were also vicious in their attacks. Zhao Chong intended to finish off Yun Ruoyan in one fell swoop. The iron claw whistled through the air toward Yun Ruoyan. "Even if she were at the same cultivation as me, I'm afraid she wouldn't be able to withstand such a powerful attack." However, Yun Ruoyan had long since prepared for this. Her peak 7th rank cultivation was instantly boosted to the peak of 8th rank through the bracelet's dimensional pocket dimension. She infused her mystical steel dagger with spiritual energy, and under everyone's shocked gazes she hooked onto the iron claw. Zhao Chong felt an abnormally strong wave of spiritual energy rush toward him from Yun Ruoyan's dagger to the iron hook. Caught off guard, Zhao Chong spat out a mouthful of blood. Wang Meng's original plan was to wait for Zhao Chong to finish off Yun Ruoyan before dealing with Zhao Chong himself. That way he would be able to obtain the treasure without offending Liemo, but Yun Ruoyan's strength far exceeded his expectations. Knowing that he couldn't hold back any longer, Wang Meng thrust his dagger toward Yun Ruoyan. "Ruoyan, be careful," Zhuo Yifeng shouted when he saw this scene. Liemo, standing in front of the all-seeing mirror, clenched his fists tightly. He had never been so nervous before. If the Feilai blade could still be used, Wang Meng would have been decapitated by now. However, the blade had been sealed. In such a dangerous situation, even with the silver bracelet's amplification, Yun Ruoyan would have found it difficult to dodge. Facing Wang Meng's attack, however, Yun Ruoyan's expression was one of panic. "Don't kill me. I'll hand over the treasure." Hearing Yun Ruoyan's words, Wang Meng's attack froze in midair. Then with a spin he reattached himself to the stone wall. "I'll hand over the treasure." As Yun Ruoyan spoke, she looked up at the sun in the sky. Time flew by and the allotted time was almost up. Zhao Chong retracted his claws and called out to Yun Ruoyan, "Give it to me. What are you waiting for?" Yun Ruoyan took off her waist pouch and threw it to Wang Meng without hesitation, and Zhao Chong followed closely behind. The two of them began to fight over the pouch, and just as they were about to fight over it, the allotted time finally arrived. Suddenly, a white light shone down from the sky, enveloping the entire trial. Everyone around Yun Ruoyan disappeared one by one, and then she too disappeared. When Yun Ruoyan opened her eyes, she found herself standing in the middle of a large hall, surrounded by 20 to 30 students. The trial's over. We're back. This is great. I'm still alive. I'm actually still alive. The students who had just escaped from death were laughing and crying at the same time. For a moment, they were so happy that they'd left the imperial territory that they'd forgotten about entering Kongming Academy. Lin Qingchen, Lin Qingxue, and Zhou Yifeng were standing not far behind her. When they saw Yun Ruoyan, they quickly gathered around her. Yun Ruoyan's gaze was fixed on the two people in front of her, Wang Meng and Zhao Chong. At that moment, the two of them were still fighting over the storage pouch. Both of them had one hand on each side of the storage pouch, while Zhao Ming's iron claws were entangled by Wang Meng's dagger. Silence, everyone. Just then an elderly man's voice rang out loud and clear, drowning out all the noise in the hall. Everyone's gaze turned towards the front of the hall at the same time. There were 6 chairs placed side by side on the high platform in front of them, and 6 white-robed old men were sitting on them. Standing in front of the 6 white-robed elders was the one who had shouted earlier, Song Song, the host of the trial. Seated on either side of Song Song were 2 rows of men about the same age as Song Song, all of whom Yun Ruoyan had seen that night when she had been summoned for questioning. They were likely Song Song's teachers. Behind them stood Shui Yun Mo Yun, and the rest of the Kongming disciples. The trial has ended without a hitch, all of you, Song Song began. Now, allow me to announce the results of the trial. Song Song looked at the students standing in the hall and continued. A total of 113 students entered the trial. 65 survived, 30 died, and 38 were severely injured or disabled. Only 35 students will be able to participate in the ranking draw. Song Song's words shocked all the students in the hall. Many of them were geniuses from large families, but none of them had known that the trial would be so dangerous, or that the number of casualties would be so high. Even Yun Ruoyan couldn't help but be bewildered. With so many noble scions dead, did Kongming Academy really not care about the feelings of the 4 kingdoms' nobles? Yun Ruoyan turned to the 6 white-robed elders behind Song Song, guessing that they were the ones Li Mo had mentioned. Li Mo had revealed a few things about Kongming Academy, but there were many things he couldn't reveal in detail, and Yun Ruoyan naturally wouldn't press him. However, Li Mo had mentioned these old men many times, and they were likely the most powerful figures in Kongming Academy. Song Song, let's begin, the white-robed elder in the middle said. Yes, first elder. Song Song turned and bowed, then turned to the students. Take out your spoils from the imperial territory, and we'll take in the top 20 students based on the number of spoils. Shui Yun Mo Yun. Song Song gestured to Shui Yun and Mo Yun. The two of them slightly bowed and walked out from the crowd of disciples towards the students in the hall. The other students also took off their purses and began to count their spoils. Then what about the 2 of us? At this moment Zhao Ming shouted in a loud voice, does this crimson sun belong to him or me? I got it first, so of course it's mine. Wang Meng replied. The 2 of them were still clutching their purses tightly, as if they weren't going to give in to the other. Song Song turned his head to look at the 6 elders. After a short discussion, the first elder passed on the results of the discussion. Song Song loudly announced, the 2 of you will have a duel here and the winner will take the treasure. There's no need for a duel. Yun Ruoyan suddenly called out. This amaranthan sun is in my hands. Yun Ruoyan raised the scarlet plant in her hand. You're tuning in to the Zhou Xian's Legacy YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.